All right, welcome everybody to Tabletop to Keyboard. I am Dustin, your game master, no more at least for this campaign. Today I'm just the host, and I'm here with most of my cast. We have 4 of the 5 players from Horror and Huttenberg, streamed edition, who are back with us today, and I want to give them a little chance to introduce themselves. So Chuck, why don't you kick us off as you always have throughout the whole season and tell us who you are and where they can find you.
Oh my gosh. I am Chuck, HBIC over at Defenders of Cobalt. You can find us at twitch.tv/Defenders of Cobalt or at Cobalt Defenders on the Twitter, and we run games and make mistakes and regret nothing.
Yeah, Bert, there was a non-streamed edition. It actually starts this coming Thursday. My off-stream group just made it through Terror and TREEFELL, and they are moving into Horror and Huttenberg starting this Thursday, so there is, in fact, a non-streamed edition. So
Nice.
you can catch up in my Discord with how that's going. I keep posting in there regularly about where they're at. So, Jeff, why don't you go ahead and carry on there with the introductions?
Sure. I'm Jeff. I'm here from Tabletop to Keyboard. You probably see me here all the time because I hang out with Dustin and we do a lot of shows here. So if you want to know about those, they're down in the panels below. And we also have a YouTube channel where we put all of our stuff. So you can see us running 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. We had a Pathfinder game for a while. We've got video games, music, art, all kinds of stuff. So that's us.
And Lindy?
Hi, of Laugh Love Lindy. I am a tabletop RPG addict, and you can find me on my channel multiple days a week, and on other people's channels other days of the week as well. So I play a lot of games.
She's a busy woman, that's for sure. Find Lindy everywhere. So, Alex?
Stop whenever I want.
I'm glad you could stop because I definitely can't. I'm Alex. I am the executive producer of the Untold Stories project, as well as the author of the Titan City Chronicles, and I do some freelance RPG designing, all kinds of stuff. And this was a wonderful campaign that we did. I'm excited to be back and talking about it today.
All right, so when I got all the players back in here today, first thing I asked them if they can remember their characters' names, because it was almost a month ago when episode 9 of Horror and Huttenberg finally came to a conclusion. That means that on an every other week basis, it was like 3 months ago when the campaign began. But that's where I'm going to try to take them all back to, clear back to character creation. Because for most of our, and I guess before we go any further, I should say, we have one more player, Hope Lavelle, who couldn't be back here with us today. She has a paying gig. You can't blame anybody for wanting to make a little money in this world. So Hope, if you get a chance to watch this later, it was great having you here. You were a fantastic player. We love Greta. We love you. It was great. We're sorry you can't be back with us today. But hopefully I did send you some questions. I'd like you just to send back some responses to me just so I can get your feedback on how you think things went. A lot of this helps me become a better GM when I do these things and I talk to my players after a campaign, because having everything in my head and then seeing things through the eyes of my players are sometimes two very different things. So with that being said, now we're going to go way back in our time machines, which was an important part of this whole campaign, and we're going to go back to character creation. If you guys can remember back that far, I actually rewatched character creation the other day just so I could remember exactly what all had kind of gone down during it, because that's what I do while I'm at work saving lives, is have you guys playing in the background sometimes. So I was curious how much you guys remember about character creation, because I did something with you guys I normally don't do during Grim and Perilous character creation. I rolled you all an additional class that you could then choose what you had gotten for your profession, or you could take my profession. And do you all remember what your alternate professions were at the time?
No.
I remember I rolled whatever it was that Chuck wanted.
You had gotten Old Believer.
Old Believer.
Oh,
okay.
Old Believer's good.
Yeah. Now, here at the end of the campaign, Chuck, you would have been a pilgrim. Could you imagine Ivan now as a pilgrim?
No. No.
I mean, it kind of worked out weird that between things that were rolled and things that weren't rolled, you guys all ended up as criminals. I mean, it became a very easy dynamic for the group to really gel together, because you guys all ended up with kind of shady individuals, like 3 knaves and a warrior, like, and a socialite technically.
Yeah, we work hard at being criminals, and it came through in our roles at the start.
Yeah.
All of us had a reshuffle. We took door number 2. What's behind there we didn't know. We knew what was back there. We knew it was the shady stuff. That's where we went.
Yeah.
if I remember correctly, I think Lindy was the only one who didn't take what was behind door number 2.
I didn't.
Really?
I didn't. Yeah, I was like, convict? That sounds cool. I can roll with that. I know how to... I can definitely play someone who has been like, I've been in and out of jail. Yeah, man, it's fine. I got this. Because I would have been like, I don't remember the name of the class, but it was basically like the magic using nun.
Yeah, adherent. Yes,
Adherence,
your other
okay.
choice was between your convict or none were your
Wow.
choices. So we
Yeah.
Wide variety there. Yeah.
and we used it as a part of your backstory, because we said like your father wanted you to like go into the nunnery. You're
Yeah,
like,
he's
no,
like-
Dad, I won't do it, and you like ran off.
Yeah, he's like, if you don't get married, you're gonna go be a nun. And I was like, no, I won't do either. And I ran off and got thrown in jails.
Multiple jails, many times.
Multiple jails.
Yep.
Because my dad's a general. I can't stay in the same one. He'll find me.
Gotta get transferred.
And
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that Alex Asher was also a dragoon when you rolled it. I think you stuck with dragoon as well, if I remember right.
Yes, I stuck with Dragoon. I know
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
And I still wound up being a criminal with everybody else.
Yeah, you were destined for criminal life with the rest of these people. But even as a warrior profession, it still worked out well. You get to kind of be the muscle for the group a little bit. Between you and Greta kind of served as muscle a little here and there too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what
Absolutely.
I know with I know one thing, and me and Jeff have talked about this ad nauseum on the wisdom check, but I'm going to have him rehash a little of his feelings here as well. Zweihander does a rolled, what we call Grim and Perilous style character creation, where you roll, you play stats right where they lay. Everything is, I think Daniel D. Fox, the creative director behind it, he referred to it as a mosaic. When you're done with your character, you have this list of traits and a profession and these lists of stats, and then you kind of have to look at all these pieces and build a personality out of it. And I know that's not Jeff's particularly favorite way of making characters. if you play DCC and a lot of other systems out there, that's maybe more standard for what you might be used to if you play a lot of systems. I'm sure Lindy has done this several times, but I was just curious. I go down each one of you. How do you feel about the Grim and Perilous method of making characters now that you've been through a campaign with it? Now, Chuck, you got the most experience with this, so
Yeah.
why don't you tell us how you feel about Ivan in that method just in general?
Yeah, I like random generation. I tend to push that into a lot of the games I run. I don't know. It gets people out of their comfort zone, because what I was finding in the games I would run is this person would always run this kind of character.
Right.
This person would always run the fighter. This person would always run the wizard. And I'm like, all right, cool. We'll do random generation for everything. That way you get to, broaden your horizons.
Now, do you do that with games that don't require it now, even over at the Cobalts? Do you just kind of push them into that all the time?
Depends on the group and depends on the game. So, yeah, and especially if it's our first time running a game, I'm like, let's just do random, see what we get. If your character dies, I'll let you pick what you want to play for the next one.
That's fair.
It's a nice system. Yeah.
Now, Jeff, I know we talked about this as recently as last week on the Wisdom Check, but
Yep.
why don't you go and tell us how you feel about random character generation now, Jeff?
Well, as we discussed before, I think for games that are short in duration, or like first times you go through a game, I don't really mind the randomness too much. Like I did it to myself when we first started 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons. Random rolled, race, class, everything, and just play it as it is. So I think there is something to that if you want to just get a sample of something that's nice. I think for a game, if I know it's going to be like a campaign that I'm going to be sticking with for a long time, I am just more interested in the actual sculpting of a story and a character and everything from the ground up. I like that creative process of working through what the themes are going to be, what sorts of things I'm going to explore, and that kind of stuff. So for me, the random thing would kind of detract from that. But you can make a good experience out of anything.
Sure.
If you work at it hard enough. So for me, not ideal for me, but it worked out. Had a decent time with it.
Do you feel like when you were done, you had a good feel of who Wolfram was?
You mean at the end of the game?
At the end of character creation, or how far into the process did it take you before you felt like you had a grasp on who Wolfram was?
It took me a few games. It took me probably 2 or 3 games before I really gelled on what I was doing with Wolfram. And then by the end of it, I had a pretty good sense of who he was and the way he was thinking through stuff. But it took me a little bit to find it.
I think it's safe to say that Chuck walked in with a pretty good idea who Ivan was already. He had like 21 rules written. He had a backstory he'd already sent me. Like, I think you pretty much had an idea already what you were doing, didn't you, Chuck?
It was like 10 rules.
It's
Yeah,
expanded.
it got expanded.
It expanded, you know. It was, okay, I'm playing a criminal. I can only do a Russian accent. Let's just go ahead and give him my standard Russian accent personality. And he's a criminal. Let's make some rules. So nice and easy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Lindy, what's your experience with random generation? How do you feel about Zweihander now that you finally got to play it?
So, generically speaking, random generation in systems, it really depends on the system for me. Because in some systems, like, I don't care for certain mechanical things at all. Like, oh, I don't like the magic in this system, so I would never want to play a magic caster. And then if you randomly get it, sometimes you're a caster, you're like, oh, well, I know this is going to be more of a chore than fun. So it really depends on the system for me. Because I've played some random character gen things in games like Ryutama. Super fun. I don't dislike anything about that system or that game class. And I'm kind of like with Jeff, and if it's for a short-term thing, or like a one-shot, heck yeah, let's make it all random. Let's go for it. Let's see how crazy we can get with it. Because I played a lot of campaigns, and I hate playing the same thing, so I already try to jump out of my comfort zone a lot. So it varies per system. For Zweihander, I didn't hate it. I didn't mind it. Did I love it? No. Do I hate it? No. It's kind of just there. It's like, okay, that's fine. I think randomly generating the stats bugged me more than all of the other random generation things, because you get a class that uses fellowship from your random generation, but you have like absolutely no fellowship. That's not great for you.
Yep.
So
yeah, exactly what I felt like on that one. Like, I don't mind having, your gender, your age,
randomize
your
all
looks,
that.
all
I
stuff.
don't care.
Randomize that all to hell. Your backstory, fine. You want to do a background thing, is randomized. I'm cool with that. Class, I can even get behind that, but then whenever it comes to stats in combination with all that did feel a little rough.
Or if you rolled stats and went down the line and then could pick your occupation based on that, I feel like picking one or the other would be nice, but, because you can kind of fit.
Now, Zweihander does have some built-in mechanics to handle that. There is a couple optional rules. One is you can just turn one of your stats at the end of character creation into a 42, and the other one is you can swap two of your stats. Try and...
I wasn't nearly that nice to you guys, but yeah, there are a couple mercy rules in there if you want to play with mercy rules. But no, Chuck is right. Those are in the book listed as options. So those are, if you get a chance to flip through the books, you will notice those in there. You'll be like, damn, that Dustin didn't let us do that. And you're right, I didn't. So that's on me. But
who would have guessed Dustin was a cruel GM?
What, do you think I picked up Grim and Perilous game by accident? No, I love Zweihander for this reason. And let's me be completely mean. Now, Alex, I know you play a fair number of systems as well. I don't know how many of those do random character generation, but now that you've been through it once with Zweihander, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, so I played a few systems. I played the first edition of Hackmaster, had a lot of randomness like that too. At least the way my dad ran it. I don't know if that was the way it was written in the book. But having things be randomly generated instantly makes the game feel old school to me. And I don't know if that's true to everybody. But I sort of appreciated, since this was my first time playing Zweihander, I didn't have to know anything when I sat down. I kind of liked that, and I was sort of at the mercy of the dice. And coming up with Asher, I sort of landed on he lost his arm in training and just decided to be Russian Ash Williams from The Evil Dead.
Oh,
and I don't think anybody noticed that Asher Williamson was Ashley Williams from The Evil Dead.
That makes so much
That's
more
amazing.
sense.
This happens every time I run a Zweihander campaign. One of my players always does this to me. They always come up with something in their head that's the basis of their character, and they don't tell me until the wrap-up show. And I've gone the entire time and not realized it. And you're right. I absolutely did not know that's what you were basing that off of. That's funny.
Yeah, I was like, I'm just going to be Ash from Army of Darkness, and I'm going to be Russian, and I'm going to do as many amazing, crazy things as I can get away with. And when I wasn't critically failing, I was getting away with a lot.
Those 3 other times.
Now,
that first episode, when I jumped from the horse to the cart and killed those 2 guys, that was epic.
Oh yeah, those were the
you peaked at episode 1. It's been downhill ever
problem.
since.
when Chuck almost died in that first fight, and Wolf was trying to keep up with him, and I was just having a great time on the other side of the battlefield. That was the highlight of the campaign.
I think Chuck spent most of the campaign almost dead. I don't know if Ivan ever was back to healthy ever. Like
when he was a robot.
When I was a robot.
oh yeah, well yeah. Once you died twice and was a robot, yes, then you were healthy. Yeah, sure, that was you were peak health at that point. So I was going to mention that what you said about the dice not having to know anything. One of my players in Terran Treefell, it was his first time ever playing any RPG. Not just at all. He jumped right into Stream. His first campaign he ever played in any. He never played D&D. He's never played Pathfinder. None of it. Just straight into Zweihander. And he appreciated the fact that, just like you said, that he didn't have to know anything. He just sat down, ended up with a character, and just played it all the way through. And that was Georgie, who was Dr. Pathos, who you guys met in the very last episode. That was his first time ever playing a game. Was Dr. Pathos. So, and he's going to be in my my Bitter Harvest campaign in 2 weeks. It's going to start. Nice. So he's coming back to play again on stream in a couple of weeks. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of that here in a little bit. But I wanted to go ahead and move on to my next. So we talked a little bit about your characters, how you felt about making them. Now we'll get a little more plot specific stuff. First and foremost, like I said, my games usually are about 10 to 13 total game sessions. What I realize is that's kind of inaccurate. My games run about 36 to 40 hours of gameplay. With Terran Treefell, I did 3-hour sessions, so it went 10. You guys, it was 4-hour sessions, so it went 9. I looked at the exact run times of all my clipped cut episodes. It is to the hour. Both of them are 36 hours worth of content That's long funny. If you ever watch them. So it's amazing that it worked out exactly like that because that was not planned. It's just I realized that when everything is said and done, I write 36-hour games. However many sessions it takes you to play through them, it's up to you. But I write 36-hour games. So as Jeff was mentioning earlier, the length of a campaign sometimes can add or detract how you feel about your character or the campaign or the story. We talk a lot about like our Everstorm 5e D&D game is on like year 3. And some of us are still playing the same characters. Like, you know, those could be marathons.
Sure, rub it in, Dustin.
I don't like. Sorry about your character, Jeff. Mine almost bit it last time too. So don't.
Almost right, yeah. Cheating death.
I did. I cheated death. But I was just curious how the length of this campaign, if you're used to campaigns that are shorter narratives, or how that impacted your experience as a player in this Zweihander campaign. So Chuck, why don't you go ahead and take off? I think I know your answer, but go ahead.
Whether I prefer longer or short form narratives.
And how this one hit for you with the length.
It was good. I like, I kind of like shorter style campaigns for the most part. It just depends on what it is, too. I mean, like a narrative story like this, it being a little on the shorter end, a handful of months, it's nice because it lets you get that story arc and you don't get lost in the weeds. Some games where the story isn't as strong, it can go longer. If we're just crawling squares on a map,
right,
fighting whatever randomly shows up, that's fine. But if you got to manage a long-term story, short form is better, I think. At least my preference. Yeah.
Now, do you feel like you would have liked this campaign to have been a little longer?
No, I think it was good right where it was at. I don't see what benefit there would have been to it being longer. The stakes were good all the way through. There weren't any lulls. At the same time, I don't think shortening it would serve anything either, because, I mean, you would be cutting stuff out. Like, what could you cut out and still have the story get to the same point?
All right. Jeff, how'd it land for you?
Yeah, I mean, generally I'm a long-form player. Like all of our experiences have typically been long-form. But I think for this, like Chuck was saying, it's the right length. I think that because the focus was so heavy on the narrative points, that serves it well. Because like you were saying, the arc is nice and tight. There wasn't a lot of downtime. There was, we knew what we were supposed to be doing. We knew where we were supposed to be going for the most part. There was always something right there ready for us. And, and I think in some other games, like maybe if it was more of a like downtime focused, more just, character development style gameplay where you're trying to like interact with one another and stuff, maybe then it would need a little bit longer of a time to have all that in there as well as unpack the story. But no, I think this was a good pacing for this.
Lindy?
Yeah, I think the pacing for this was good. I've played in a wide variety of length of games. I've played everything from, like, I've got 3 shots on my channel, like, where it's like tiny little mini arc campaigns. But my Tuesday game's been running for over a year and a half. Because we just keep doing Ravenloft module after Ravenloft module, so it's a bunch of little arcs with the same characters, because they haven't died yet.
Get with it, Lindy. How come you haven't killed one yet? What's wrong with you?
I know.
That's
I
impressive in
almost killed them.
Ravenloft.
I know, I almost killed them a lot. I almost one-shot them a lot. I'll be like, bam, and then they'll get hit. I'll be like, oops, I crit 3 times in a row, and they're like, we're almost dead. And then they miraculously pull out of it with a series of good rolls, and I get poor rolls. It's just luck of the dice that they're still alive, honestly. Repeatedly. So I do enjoy long games, like long campaigns, but again, it's really, character-focused campaigns where I enjoy that in. Whereas with this, I feel like it was definitely more quest-focused, and our characters all being a part of the headband gang, we already knew each other. There wasn't a lot to develop inter-party-wise, so it was like, yeah, let's get this done, let's go. Steal things, and then steal the same thing again from a different person, and then
Let's do our
so on
time
and
heist.
so forth. Yeah, let's do our time heist. We know it. We're experts in time travel. It's fine.
Mhm.
So yeah, I enjoyed the length. I think it was really good because we did have extra weeks like scheduled out in case we needed them, in case it did run longer. But it just wrapped itself all nicely, right at 9 episodes. So.
Alex?
Yeah, I'm sort of in the same boat, except I want to keep playing with you guys because playing with you guys was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
That's the only bad thing about stream campaigns sometimes. It's like, yeah, it'll be like this to this many weeks with these people, and then you all split off afterwards. And you're like, but wait.
Off into the ether. No, but yeah, it was very well paced. I never felt like there was an episode where none of us were needed. Even in the episodes where some of us weren't there, I felt like all of us were needed.
There was a fair amount of absences, really, when you consider it was only 9 games. Like, Lindy and Hope weren't able to make the very first one, and then everyone was there for the second one, but I had to spend a fair amount of time getting Lindy and Hope kind of into the group.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think by 4 we missed Jeff for a game, and then somewhere I think Asher missed a game. Like, it was like we didn't have a full group for probably half of the sessions, really. But you guys did a really good job of, I don't know, just group chemistry was really good. I think just from the get go, even like it really didn't seem like there was a lot that I had to do to get everybody, I guess, role playing with each other to a degree. Like, the banter and everything was good. Like, it was.
We bought into the criminal element very quickly.
Yeah.
Does that say something about you all as a group of players? I don't know.
No,
but-
Dustin, it doesn't say anything about us. Why would you say that?
Nothing
Look,
at all.
crime is in my
Well,
genetics,
it was
okay?
Hope's first time playing like a criminal, like a bad character. So
Yeah.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
was, yeah.
she's a D&D player. She plays on D&D Beyond and stuff. It was her first time playing somebody who was maybe more seedy. Like, if you go watch her druid Penelope, she's just the cutest, sweetest little gnome halfling. I'm trying to think. I think she's a gnome, little gnome druid. Like, just as sweet as could be. And then she comes over here and plays Greta, this big ogre who drinks and belches fire.
Yeah, I'm usually the DM, so I get to play bad guys all the time.
So you're kind of used to it, right?
Yeah.
I tend
miss
to
Strahd.
gravitate towards playing bad guys.
Makes a lot of sense.
So, one of the things you guys get to do in Zweihander, and this is a feature of the system, is that you guys did finish out your basic tier, and you get to pick a new one. Mm-hmm. And so this is something that's maybe a little different than what you're used to with a lot of RPGs, where, like we said, at character creation, you have this like mosaic, right? You get this character that's kind of handed to you. I always kind of joke like it's a newborn, and now you have to raise it to adulthood so it can go be what it wants to really be. And that's how I feel about Zweihander. Like, no matter what you're born into in life, once you hit intermediate tier, you finally get to go be what you wanted to be when you grew up. And you guys get to do that. So let's talk a little about what you picked and whether or not you feel like it worked out well for you, or if you enjoy it, or how you feel about that tiered system of character growth. So, Chuck, you've done this a few times with Zweihander.
Yeah. It's nice to do it. I mean, like, some characters are static. Like, if you look at like DCC, D&D, stuff like that, this is your class and that's it for the entire length of your character. There's nothing really to see them grow or expand. Well, Zweihander's nice. You hit your tiers. By the book, you have to have, done things to kind of take interest in your new profession. You have to have certain items to be able to advance to a new profession. So it's something you got to think about where your character is going, where your character has been, and what resources do you have that would make sense for your character to grow. So it's kind of nice to be able to do, a very clear expansion of your character, seeing how they're growing as a character mechanically versus, oh, my character now, hates this and they used to love it or something like that. So, yeah.
And in a longer campaign, you would worry more about the gold sinks of getting surgical tools or an apothecary kit. And you look at it and you're like, 17 gold crowns? I can't afford this for 9 years. So then you have to go do a bunch of questing to get gold, just to get gold, so you can eventually tier up.
You're at nine gold crown debt because you've been buying bandages, and then you just never take professional.
Yeah. So
you gotta struggle to get that advancement.
Obviously, with only a 9 to 13 game session, I'm hand waving a lot of the prereqs when it comes to gold. We'll talk a little about money in a minute, but that's just one of the things I was wondering. I didn't worry so much about some of that. And Chuck is correct. Per book, you have to have all the prerequisites to. It's like you have to earn your way in, not only just through RP and reward points, but also through gold and earnings into a new profession sometimes. And all that is baked into the system. But when you're playing a shorter campaign like the ones I'm running, I definitely hand-waving some of that. So Jeff, how did you feel with Sellsword when you went from Rake to Sellsword? And
I think there is some room for interesting things to happen with this sort of system. I really didn't know what to do with Wolfram for this. Kind of looking through the classes, there wasn't a lot that jumped out and said this is something that makes sense for him. Especially with the stat arrays that I ended up with, because I really thought that he should have gone something kind of intellectual, more of that kind of professor element to kind of play into that side of him. But I ended up with Sellsword, and mechanically I think it's really strong. I think it's it brings a lot to the table. That just kind of enhanced what I already had. But I don't know that it really shaped what he was in terms of character so much. I think it was more, I took it as he's getting used to the fact that he's in this group doing all these horrible things. So now he's just, that's fine, guys, but this is what we do. I'm hard now. So yeah, I don't know. I think some of it was that I didn't realize you could buy things outside of your kit to help you transition into another thing.
Yeah, for extra RP, it's double cost. So it's steep price, but you can do it. It's just those are some of those things that take a little time.
Mm-hmm. And it seemed like there was a lot of if my memory serving right, I thought there were prerequisites that were limiting me on choices for what I wanted to get
expert
into.
professions have prereqs. Most of the professions do not. You can take another basic profession and attach it on with almost no penalty other than do you have the right equipment to actually do the job once you're there. It's you want to become a barber surgeon, you have to have a set of barber's tools. So it's 17 gold crowns. Once you earn 17 gold crowns and you buy the equipment to be a barber surgeon, you're a barber surgeon. You can go right into it. But if you wanted to be military officer, it's you must have one rank in martial melee. So if you ain't got a rank in martial melee, you have to buy a rank in martial melee and then go into the profession. So
yeah, so not knowing that you could buy something outside your kit, I was looking through and I was like, it can't be this one, can't be that one, can't be that one, can't be one. So when I was going through that process, it felt like the random choice at the start dictated what my next choice was going to be for me, as opposed to being a real choice. So for me, it felt a little miss there, but now that I know that there are these alternate ways of doing it, I think it's a different system that would be, more open-ended to role-playing experiences.
Lindy, have you experienced anything quite like this before when it comes to character advancement?
Kind of, sort of similar. Not super similar, where it's a completely different. It's kind of like multiclassing, I guess, where you're I get to be this now. Which I've never multiclassed in D&D. I've been playing it for 4 years, but I've never done it. I've been no, I'm good. So, but I did because, again, the first tier was random. I really did getting to choose the second one based on what had happened to Ravit thus far in the story. So I think Apothecary suited her so well, based on all the things that we were finding and doing. And, hey, I just stole my alchemy kit from that place we raided. So that was convenient. Oh, sorry, cat.
It was conveniently allowed by your GM who knew you would need one.
Yeah! So that was super fun. Yeah, I enjoyed Apothecary a lot. I thought that class was super fun. Getting to make all the alchemy things really appealed to Ravit and myself. Sometimes I make choices for the character. I'm like, oh, I'm not a huge fan, but they would totally do this. But I wound up really enjoying it. I thought it was super.
Apothecary is such a solid profession. It really is. Like it's one that really opens up a lot of things you can do.
Oh yeah.
Especially with the additions in Main Gauche of everything that Apothecary then goes into. Like that profession got so good after Main Gauche came out. Like it was already good, but it got really good after Main Gauche. So.
It didn't help with our bandage problem, but it opened up a lot of other options, which was really neat.
Alex, how did you
We
feel
got to
about
take a
your
lot of
Barnstormer?
drugs.
Yeah, we did have to take.
We got to take all of the drugs.
Take all the drugs.
And
well,
barrel bombs.
Yeah, Barnstormer was cool just because it was built into the plot. Like it was something that the plot called for.
Yeah.
So I was glad I got to slot into that position and have Asher's role sort of figured out in the story, beyond just being a meat shield and being the warrior of the group. I liked that I was able to find something else that I could do to help the group outside of combat.
Yeah. Now
I was never very good at being a Barnstormer, but we successfully time traveled, so that's what matters.
Yeah. No. I mean, in all real, like, if you would have been like, I don't know, Barnstormer doesn't seem like it fits Dragoon very well. Like, I want to go with Cavalier or something else. Like, I would have let you, and I'd have just been like, yeah, you still get to drive this thing. You're just going to use ride instead of and pilot. You know, I'd have just warped the rules a little and let you do it. But since you bid on it, you're like, I want to be a Barnstormer. I was like, yes, he bid on it. And I put Barnstormer out there and he took it. So
it feels like a natural extension from Dragoon. It's just like moving from cavalry to motorized cavalry.
Yeah.
I wasn't very good at the motorized part.
It's interesting because what it gets does not particularly stack directly on top of Dragoon as nice as it does like Cavalier would have. Like Cavalier would have doubled up your melee. It would have doubled up your resolve. Like some of those things you would have had 2 dots in, whereas instead you ended up with like 1 dot in a whole bunch of things because the way that Barnstormer is built more off of agility than it is off of combat, you ended up with a kind of a nice set of complementary skills that instead of like.
And if I could roll dice, it would have been great.
And then if the dice would have just cooperated, yeah, you'd have been in good shape. Because your Barnstorming this ended up being a whole bunch of gunnets while nearly unconscious and getting fed smelling salts by a robot.
Well, you know.
That was great.
Are you really playing Zweihander if you're not getting fed smelling salts by a robot?
I'm going to say, it's basically, we had R2-D2 helping out Luke, so, I mean, it was fine.
Yeah,
That's right.
That was it. It just, rather than fixing the ship, I'm just stuffing drugs in your nose.
He was.
Asher, you've turned off your targeting eyes.
I don't think he's even at the helm. I think he's using the force to drive this thing forward at this point.
I really like how useful Ivan taking the heal skill was.
Oh my
It
god.
saved our bacon.
Yeah, we'd have been toast
This
otherwise.
is the second group where no one got a profession that naturally has heal. So, and this is where I mentioned it at the beginning of the game, and I can understand why by the time you got to pick a new profession, you hadn't thought about it, Jeff. But like that's why I was saying, like, if there's anything you want to swap out, I'm letting you do it for free at character creation. And I advised someone take heal, and Chuck is like, I'll take heal. And I was like, good, someone's got heal, because otherwise they are not going to live through all this. And sure enough, heal became pretty useful. And I even put a free barber surgeon and a free doctor out there, basically. And you guys made use of all of it. Chuck, the doctor, and the barber surgeon were regular appearances in this game because they had to be.
Session.
So,
We got so injured so frequently.
which does bring us to another feature of Zweihander is that healing is characters die more, in my opinion, as Zweihander due to attrition than they do actual like exploding dice like ridiculous flukes. It's attrition that kills characters because healing doesn't just happen. And if you're used to playing D&D where you take a nap, you spin some hit dice, and boom, you wake up feeling ready to go another few rounds, like that doesn't really happen with Zweihander much. Now, Chuck, we know you took it right from game number 1.
Yeah, I was getting my butt kicked right off the bat. And that was even later on in the game, it got real sketchy because we ran out of money to buy stuff. Like,
Mhm.
we don't have money to buy bandages. We don't have money to buy laudanum. When I became a robot, it's just like, great, I need a very special item to be able to heal up.
I had you though.
You did.
had
It was
you.
fantastic. But yeah, it added that extra level of stress. Like, okay, I can't heal anyone now because we're out of medical supplies and money.
Now, you were experienced with Zweihander, so when you said I'm going in with one fate point, and playing under an experienced GM like myself, you knew the risk.
I knew the risk.
The rest of them were all doughy-eyed. They had no idea. So I'm curious, like, from Jeff and Lindy and Alex, how did you feel about how deadly the game felt? Jeff?
I actually really like that. I think that the damage condition tracker, the injuries, and the peril tracker are really interesting. I like that style of attrition combat. Fights actually felt scary. Not for my character in particular had some things that made that not true, but I think, watching everyone else and how they kind of played through things, I felt like there was a lot of important decisions that needed to be made around whether you wanted to get into a scene with a combat or if you wanted to stay out of it, how much defense you needed to have. And I think that peril element of it really shapes the game in a different direction that I think is really good. I think that's rock solid. So all in all, I think that's the strongest thing to me that Zweihander does.
It's combat systems? Damage system in particular, you mean?
In particular, the damage and peril. Combat system in general, I think I'm kind of iffy on, but the damage and peril thing I think are rock solid.
Lindy?
So I've played a lot of deadly tabletop RPGs. I've played a metric ton of Call of Cthulhu, where it's like, oh, you might have between 8 to 12 HP, and a pistol does 1d10 plus 2. Good luck.
Yeah.
And if you get a successful first aid check, you get 1 HP back per day. And it's rough. It's really rough. So, and also Unhallowed Metropolis is another very deadly system where it's 2d10s plus whatever, but any damage above a 21 is insta-death. So, yeah, you're really nervous in any combat in that system. So I was used to really deadly systems, so it was just like, oh, okay, it's just different mechanics for the same level of, you should be very cautious. So that wasn't really much of a surprise to me. Just had to learn the damage track system. It was all right. I really liked the chase mechanics of Zweihander more so than the combat mechanics. And I have a love-hate relationship with bottle bombs now.
They're great when they work. They're not so great when they blow up in your face.
30% of the time. I got set on fire so many times.
Poor Ruby.
It was almost every session.
Yeah, it was close to it. Once fire was permitted, it was every session.
Now, someone who might feel a little differently about some of the health systems in combat might be Alex, because he played a warrior class who was actually pretty decent at it.
Yeah, and my attitude as a whole, I didn't realize how dangerous it was going to be because nothing bad happened to me until I almost got killed. So Asher was like, we're in a fight, we're cool, this is great. I'm just going to go and hack my way through all these dudes real quick. And then one cultist tripped me on the ground and almost killed me with a dagger in one hit.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is not what I thought I signed up for.
Well, you're the only one who started with armor.
Yeah,
So-
I had armor, I had a sword, I had a shield, life was great. But I don't know, I'm used to playing more cinematic systems, like Mutants and Masterminds, and games where there's not a lot of peril to your character.
Aliens. That's another one that's super deadly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My friend
We
Matt over at
survived.
Free League's trying to get me to start in on that, so we might start that up soon.
Do
So
it, man. Those free league games are
So
awesome.
good.
yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
I do like me a deadly game.
We had our aliens one-shot on Monday, and we survived the xenomorphs, but one party member kicked me out of the airlock at the end. And
You were sus.
deactivated our android and shot the other one in the head. So
You were so sus, weren't you?
I was.
Oh, whoops.
I was like, man, we survived the whole scenario, and then we got betrayed by a player character at the end.
That's perfect.
That's
I love
amazing.
that.
Yeah, so that's on YouTube if anybody wants to watch it. It was a wonderful time.
Definitely have to catch that.
But yeah, I'm used to cinematic systems where characters can get away with a lot of nonsense because I write superhero RPGs, so that's more what I'm used to. Is like Superman's not worried about most of this stuff until it's specifically important to the plot that he's worried about it. But I was worried about it the whole time. It was the difference. It was like the difference between playing Fallout in survival mode and playing Fallout on easy mode.
Yeah.
I was going to ask now, do you feel like the deadliness of the system impacted your decision making at all? Like, clearly for you, it must have.
It did after I realized how bad it was.
Because it's not the damage that seems bad. It's when you realize the damage doesn't go away very quickly. That's when you start really rationing off how many health levels you got. You wake up the next day and you're still like, ooh, Chuck failed to heal me. I didn't gain anything in the last 24 hours, and we got a whole nother day to get through. Like that's when like I said, it's a war of attrition. Because if you're failing those heal checks, like it gets bad quick. Like
I mean, if you notice, my order ranks went up for the first 3 episodes, while everybody else's went down because everybody else was taking drugs and stuff to survive. And I was just like, this is great, this is great, this is great, this is bad.
Oh, Air Laser rated with a party of 6. Thank you, Air Laser, for bringing people over here. Substance use, of course, you're here. Substances, it's good to see you. We're talking a little Zweihander here, talking about some of the systems in the game, what they like, what they didn't like, maybe so much. Talking a little about some of the things that went down in Horror and Huttenberg. We're gonna get into some plot twists and some other stuff that happened here shortly. So, thank you guys for being here. We still have our trailer for Vigilantes of Valandria I'm going to air here shortly, and cast announcements for Bitter Harvest, which starts here in 2 weeks from today, at this exact same time, 5 o'clock Central.
Nice.
So. We were just discussing how they feel about the health systems and combat systems in Zweihander, and they touched a little bit on the chase systems, and I think the system maybe we didn't use nearly as much as I thought we would initially was social intrigue. We had like one area where social intrigue was kind of used, but I think just the nature of your guys' group.
We used it twice.
Maybe twice.
I will definitely put out there that social intrigue is my least favorite of the Zweihander rules.
Is it because you haven't used it much, Chuck, or do you just don't feel like it works?
I don't use it much because it seems like it adds a lot of complication to just people talking.
I feel like
RP.
it would be good for groups that don't RP much, because there are a lot of groups that just don't care about RP terribly much. They're like, my character does this. They're not saying, I do this. I feel like it'd be good for those scenarios.
What I felt about it myself after having used it a few times is I feel like what it does is it's a way for the GM to fairly arbitrate what an NPC does. Because when you're done using the system with the book, there's charts based on your roles. It tells me a list of adjectives I then apply to the NPC. So based on how you roll, it tells me NPC is now helpful. NPC is now caring. NPC now is angry. So like instead of me being just a dick and being like, well, this NPC's just not going to give them anything. Well, they rolled good enough. It tells me they're helpful. So now we can role play out a scene with a helpful NPC is essentially how the system, it's like a small break to do a few rolls so you can figure out and arbitrate as GM. Whereas I think maybe the more natural style for us who've been GMing for a long time is to say, well, I'm just going to decide what my NPC is based on what I built this NPC to be. And
I feel like this sort of system works well for like you're doing RP in a scene and you hit an impasse. Like two parties want different things. They're not caving in. You know, the arguments are out there. You can look at how successful the arguments are, and then you can arbitrate. Like I like those sorts of ideas for social elements. You know?
To me, it feels very vampire social disciplines at LARP. Is what it feels like to me. It's like a break. Oh, we have to make a roll. Vampire's going to do something social. Okay, everyone back to roleplay. And roleplay out what just happened, you two. Like, and I feel like that's very much how it strikes me, and you're exactly right, Jeff. That's exactly how it lands for me, too, when I'm playing it. Like, it's very much in that same boat. And I think that's why maybe I've used it a little less in this one than I did in Terror and TREEFELL. I still like the system. I'm being a little pickier, I think, on when I reach for it.
I think it's one of those systems that makes sense in like a in specific scenarios. So like if you have like court politics or you're trying to impress the king and you got different parties doing whatever they're doing, that system I think really kicks ass for that. If you're in a court scene or something, I think that would work really well for that. If any of those sorts of scenarios that are rarely done in a tabletop game, I think those would benefit from this sort of system. I think your run-of-the-mill conversation with an NPC, I don't see the need for it.
It's written by book not to be used for regular conversation. It's supposed to be for complex negotiation and things like that. So it is exactly what you're saying. It's just a matter of, as the GM, when do I reach for it, when don't I reach for it, is what I'm fine-tuning, I think, that process as a GM for Zweihander on when I reach for it, when I don't.
Yeah, I think a scenario like if we had gone into the temple, that I'm sure we'll talk about later, and had to negotiate with the other players, and we hit a point where they were like, no, we're not doing it. Oh, yeah, well, we think you really should. Here's our reasoning for it. That might have been a really good point for it there. Whereas I think in other types of situations, it wouldn't be necessary.
Yeah, I think you're dead on, and that's how I think it's intended to be used as well. It's just been a matter of when I've decided or not decided to use it. But Lindy, what did you feel about social intrigue? Do you feel about the same, or?
Yeah, about the same. I feel like it's because other systems like Witcher has a social intrigue system. However, you lose instead of health, you lose basically stamina if you don't succeed on your checks. So it is a battle of sorts, a battle of wits more so. Game of Thrones also kind of has this social intrigue system. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel like there was many negative connotations for this social intrigue system, except for the NPCs become more or less hostile. There was no mechanical things to your character.
That's true.
So it seemed kind of like more of a tool for groups that aren't RP to me, based on that fact. Because most social RP systems do have a negative for if you don't roll well or if the NPC rolls higher than you, like peril or something.
Yeah, I think peril would be a good choice for that. You know, if you feel embarrassed.
Anytime you critically fail, you get peril. So there's always that risk because you are rolling dice. But yeah, you'd have to critically fail to see anything health or otherwise happen. I mean, it could end up in a combat or something, which could cost you. But that's a combat system at that point.
But that could happen with just assassin an NPC. You know,
right. Yeah, there's no real negative to it otherwise. Yeah. Alex?
Yeah, I'm sort of in the same boat as Lindy, where it feels like it's a tool that's available for groups who might not be playing this game for role-playing purposes. Mm-hmm. Especially with a grim, dark fantasy game like this. I could see a lot of groups being very like, I'm here because the combat's dangerous. I'm not here to play a character.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be playing a new character next session after I get my head lopped off.
Which is always a possibility.
Yeah, and that's just everybody comes to role-playing games for different reasons. I mean,
sure.
I think groups that are very interested in role-playing will not want it to be governed by a dice, but I think this all comes down to sort of how every game system handles charisma different than they use any other attribute. I've seen a lot of videos about that recently where we sort of do charisma backwards from the other stats.
Right.
Like, this is your argument, right? Now make your roll. Instead of make your roll, and then this is what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's always been a complaint of mine, but finding a system that works around it is really difficult to do. And that's one thing I do like about the social intrigue system here, is it does give you that ability to do that. It's just, I don't like to break up actual role play much. So I don't reach for it until I feel I need it. And I'm, like I said, honing in on that, I think, myself on this system, where I want to use it and not use it more. So
yeah, I definitely think it works really well when there's more than two parties negotiating. I thought that was a good use of it when Halfram and Arclight were negotiating with us, so against each other and against us, all of us in a triangle, sort of trying to figure out how it worked out.
I built that scene specifically to use social intrigue for. Like, I had that in mind. I always this is a situation where I'm going to have to use social intrigue. So I built the thing with the intent of this is how that one was going to play out. And that's one of them where I was pretty pleased with how it went, versus I went back and watched how I used it in Terra and TREEFELL in a couple places. And even really where it asks you to use it in Bitter Harvest, I feel it's kind of an awkward spot for that. So, maybe that's why for you, Chuck, it never landed well, because I didn't think that one was set up quite right for that one,
right,
as an introduction one for it. But
Asher didn't have anything that he could do to contribute to social scenarios either. So that was sort of an instance where I was sort of stepped back and keeping an eye on everything. It might be interesting if you could incorporate non-social skills into the social roles. Because
Yeah.
Asher didn't have any dots in anything social, and he had a fellowship of 29. So
Well, there's
Yeah.
a couple of those skills that are not under fellowship. Intimidates under brawn. There's a couple on there I think that fall technically under other stats, but most of them are under fellowship. So
yeah. And Greta was better at intimidating than I was. So
Yeah, she
I'm just
was.
Sort of like, I'm gonna keep an eye out and see if any of the guards are coming. Is what I think Asher did in that scene. So
you did have the highest perception. You were the best lookout person.
Yeah, I was trying to remember what I did in that. Like, I have bargain, but I know Greta was better at it.
You-
so I didn't,
You were a
didn't really
socialite. A rake doesn't seem
He
like a
was a
socialite,
guile.
but he's a socialite, so you probably had a fair number of guile or
I have
rumor or
one-
something.
I have 1 dot in guile and 1 dot in rumor.
Well, that's all
Yeah,
it takes
I
is
think
one
we-
dot's better than most people.
I feel like Wolfram and I alternated between Guile and Rumor.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
probably.
I
that's
also
good.
have
I
1
think
dot
that's
in
right.
Guile and 1 dot in Rumor. So I think we did one and then we swapped for the next social combat.
yeah, I was like, can I introduce my sword into this social conversation?
Your sword intelligent and has a better rumor stat than you. Is that what you're?
I mean, pretty much. Nobody's ever disagreed with my sword once it makes contact.
Go.
Oh,
It's up until then that people are like disputing it, but once it gets in there, nobody argues.
all right. So
That's fair.
we'll kind of set down systems a little bit and start picking up a little more on some of our plot details. I started you all out, well, 3 of you anyway, outside the city gates, needing to steal some. I didn't even tell you what was in the boxes. Just some boxes. It was a straight up opening heist. I like to start all of my games with some action sequence. I don't know why. I feel like it just gets people immediately. There's immediate buy-in when there's an immediate action sequence of some sort. So I was like, I didn't realize at first when I was putting this together that I was going to be missing 2 of my players, but I felt like at the time, like, something to gel the group together is go steal something together. They all rolled criminals. They're already a headband gang. Like, they had already had all this figured out before session number 1 during the 2 weeks between character creation session number 1. I was like, that's it then. It's not how originally Horn Huttenberg was supposed to start.
No?
But when I looked at the group, I was like, this is not a problem. We can do this. Instead of escorting the stuff back in from TREEFELL, we'll just have them steal it.
To be fair,
So-
we did escort it back into Tree.
You did.
back into
Yeah, we did,
Huttenberg
we did.
When we were
You
done.
did.
You
So
did a fantastic job of that.
So, so I decided, you know what? They'll just steal it. Like, this is so much, almost better. I'm like, it's almost better this way. But no other group that I ever have will be this criminal when they walk into this adventure. So
Don't
it's,
say
That's what you
never.
think. That's what
well,
you
my,
think,
my,
yeah.
my off-stream group is definitely not going to go steal it.
Oh, okay.
I'm
oh,
still,
man, their story is going to be completely different.
oh
I have
yeah,
no
yeah,
chance to be close to the same.
they actually survived Terra and TREEFELL with the good guy ending somehow. So going into Horn Huttenberg, I got like no leg to stand on at the moment. I got to figure it out before Thursday. But
Wait a minute, there's a good guy ending?
yeah, there was. I didn't know
got
it was
the bad
possible till they
ending?
did it. I didn't know it was possible till they did it. And I was like, shit, you guys won. That wasn't supposed to happen. I was like, all right,
wanna
fine,
say
you
it's
win. But
Yeah, same scum indeed, yeah.
yeah, I'll recant their stories down the road. But if you're in my Discord, I put up there how they're doing on the off-stream TREEFELLs where it's currently at. I think Jeff just put it down there in the archive section. So it's down there, but you can find it where I recant exactly what they got going on. But but you guys though were criminals, and I was like, well, this is easy. I'll just have them steal the Witchstone. And I thought be an interesting. The Witchstone is essentially the MacGuffin of the story. It's the thing that you have to decide what to do with. It's the gold suitcase from Pulp Fiction. You don't even have to know what's in it. You just know you have this thing and it's got to go somewhere. And then meeting the NPCs and kind of figuring out who you like or don't like or what they're doing and how you feel about it is this kind of the initial. I don't want to say moral crux. I don't think there was a lot of morals involved for you guys, but the initial. Business decision, if you will, of what you're going to do with it. So tell me we'll go down from Chuck through the list again, how you felt about the initial intake of the story, the hook. How did you like the NPCs? Like, what did you like or not like about kind of the initial part of the game?
It was good, right? I liked, all right, we're these criminals, we get to do this thing, we get to steal this product, and then it's like, oh, this stuff is way more dangerous than I was imagining. And now I got this one crazy wizard who wants to take us out for stealing his shit. We got this one angry dude who's yelling at us about stealing this stuff and wanting to do stuff with it. So it was really cool to be able to see the kind of like the 3 different paths we could take to move into it, and wondering like, is this the right one? Is that the wrong one? And then also it was entertaining to see us, burn the bridges of those different paths.
Just immediately. Yeah.
And letting that decide which direction we were taking. It was good. I liked it. It gave us that opening choice. And then it was fun to see those different branches weave back together at the end of it to, right, all these people that we pissed off, we now have to work with and do this thing with to save the day. So it was really good. I enjoyed, a simple start off with the diverging paths, and we got to kind of take it where we wanted to.
Jeff?
Yeah, I largely feel the same. I think that it's good to start a game off with bang, get people dropped in the middle of something. So the action sequence at the beginning, it was a good introduction, get introduction to systems. It instantly builds that camaraderie. We're complicit in the same
for 3 of
together. You. Yeah. Almost ended with a couple characters gone. We got to taste things up front. I think that like Chuck was saying, I think the instant divergence and choices that you had to make were good. One thing I think may benefit from a slight adaptation is that maybe there should be a point where the players know a little bit more about the 3 people before we hit the first choice. Because for me, at that first point of diverging paths, it felt kind of arbitrary at that point because we didn't know enough about them to make an actual choice. It was like, this is the guy we know. Those 2 other guys, we don't know anything about them. So that would be the only thing I think would need possibly tweaking. But overall, I think it's strong. I think it gives a lot of direction for people to go in, and it just immediately gets you, hooked into what's happening next. So it's good stuff.
Lindy?
So yeah, I feel like it was, I missed the heist, sadly. But I did get to do a prison break with Greta, so that was fun. And we caught up. Yeah, I kind of felt similarly about having to choose who to side with, because it was like, I know nothing about any of these people, because I wasn't involved in the heist. So it's like, fuck them all, whatever, we don't care. I feel like that played a big part in us being like, we'll just steal it from everyone, back and forth repeatedly, because we don't care about these people, because we know nothing about them. But it was interesting. I liked that. I think we were all, though, the most scared of magic Uzi Baron von Helfrich guy, because we were like, oh, we fuck him the most, but also dang, he's scary. So that was interesting. I feel like that was the most we knew, because I didn't know anything about Alexei or Hal. It was like, okay, these 2 guys, and then scary dude. I liked those 2 guys. By the end of it, I thought Alexei was hilarious. He was probably one of my favorite NPCs from the thing, especially once we found out that he was a quack. That tickled me. So yeah, maybe just knowing a little bit about them before heisting, or before divvying out goods.
Alex?
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed that we started with a big action scene. I mean, I always like to start a story with a good action scene. And like everybody else has been saying, I mean, it did feel a little arbitrary who we stole from. And I feel like we as a group always just said yes to whoever we were talking to at that exact moment.
Yeah.
And then continued to do our own thing instead of whatever we promised to do for the NPCs. But I do like that kind of snowballed throughout the whole campaign, where we were just like, yes, of course, yes, 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 yes. And then we got all the way down to the bottom and started the apocalypse.
What was interesting from my perspective was, as the GM, I wasn't sure initially. Like the initial, it was like when I wrote this thing, kind of initially, like how I wanted it to go. I just, in my head, I always assume players are going to be somewhat on the side of good. I don't know why I assume this, but I do. Usually there's at least one person in every group who kind of shoehorns towards let's do the normal good thing, right? I should have known with you guys this would be different, but I didn't. So when I originally wrote it, the choices weren't like Alexei or Hal or Baron von Helfrich. It was Baron von Helfrich or Alexei and Hal. And when you find out there's a rift between them, usually most players are like, oh, they used to be friends. Like, we need both of them to complete some of these things we're doing. I wonder why they don't like each other no more. And you find out about the accident that took Hal's legs, and you find out about Alexei being a quack, and you get all these information, you're like, we can mend these fences. Like, this can all work. And then, so initially in my head, it wasn't necessarily an A or a B. That the social intrigue scene was supposed to be more of a meeting of the minds to get them back talking to each other again and working together, like to make these things happen, right? Now, not that you couldn't go work for Bravo von Helfrich or Jeremiah Umbridge, the halfling who's down there trying to get proton packs created to get rid of his
he
problem.
Thought we were cool.
Yeah.
he loved us, you know. It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
was wondering about communist halfling.
but so I originally, maybe some of that initial disconnect was that I just assumed, and then what happened was when you guys got there and I realized you didn't really care about any of them. I was like, well, is it because they're criminals who just don't care about people? Or is it because the players just don't know enough? So it's interesting to hear. Like, so at the time, I wasn't particularly sure which one I thought it was, whether I need to give you more information or whether I need you to be like, you know, well, we're criminals, but we have to find some way to give a damn. So I thought to myself,
they were three different factions completely. Like, it was this A, B, or C.
Right, that's
and
what I
fuck
thought.
C. Because, you know.
Right.
Yeah, I thought Alexei's manservant was trying to kill Hal.
he kind of did too, but that was
And like, I thought he would try to kill us if we tried to help Hal.
because there's actually
Not
7
Alexei.
factions in total, but 3 of them are hidden because you don't learn about Mr. Boswell's extra curricular activities till much later in the story. You don't find out that Marcus Wilde is the cult leader until much later. Like, those things are intentionally hidden initially, but yeah, there's actually like 7 different ways this can go before it's all done. But yeah, no, I think it was just interesting because I was like, well, the problem is they're criminals. They're just doing whoever will pay them the most gold. So then I was like, they got to have this immediate like payout of a crap ton of gold. And I was like, I'll just load them up with gold and take gold off the table so that gold's no longer the problem. And then you all got injured so much that you spent all that gold and still then was broke. Like, it was pretty insane. I was like, I don't think I could throw enough gold crowns at these people. Where,
Hey, we'll take as many as you want. Give us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
we'll just spend it all on bandages. We're just doing the bandage and doctor economy.
it's what I always joke that
Single-handedly.
Zweihander was written by Americans. You can tell by the cost of healthcare. So it drains your bank account dry. I don't care how much we put in there because, you know, I think in game 3 I gave you guys like a purse. I think because Greta, Hope's character, had Black Marketeer, she gets 3 times the value. Well, I didn't even give you guys 3 times the value because Witchstone is already stupid expensive. Like, if you knew what Witchstone is actually worth in gold crowns, like, I ripped you off. But because this is like, Horn Huttenberg takes place in kind of the pre-Witchstone era of, before it's really a known commodity. It's only known in, like, occult circles and stuff at the moment. So it doesn't have the black market value. So I didn't pay you the ridiculous amounts that many crates of Witchstone would actually fetch. But I gave you enough gold crowns that most Zweihander games never see that much gold. So I took gold off the table. This won't be a problem. And then they spent it all on bandages.
Yeah,
Huck and I almost died almost every single
Yeah,
time.
we did.
that's true.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think some of the disconnect wasn't necessarily the motivation in form of money, at least not from my perspective. I think for me, the disconnect was we didn't have enough information about the factions, and
Yeah.
we didn't have any drive at that point to create any of these devices. It was like they have an agenda in this direction, this direction, this direction. They're mutually exclusive. We're just dudes. Like, why do we care which one of them completes what? And so,
We
like, I
just want
think
to
that
get
was where
money
it
and
was.
get out of town. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like, oh, we've screwed up. The cops are on us. We need to get out of here. And you guys, well, which one of you guys going to pay us? Because I don't know what you guys are doing with it. Just go. So I think that's where it was at the start. You know, later on when we figured out what they were building, obviously,
yeah,
then
once
there
we
were
figured it out, we were like, yeah, we're going to help these guys. We're going to get this thing
Yeah.
working.
different
We're gonna
moral
fix
choices
this.
started happening at that point because we had the information. We knew the characters a little bit more. We could make decisions. But up to that point, I feel like it was more of just we don't have enough information to give a damn. So the thing we do give a damn about is getting paid and getting out so we don't get arrested. So
Like I
I
said,
think that's what happened.
not to be too topical, but if the quarantine had been a little stronger on the city, I bet you we would have been fighting to find, who can get the heat off of us and working
Yeah.
with those people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if there had been a scene where they were like, nobody may leave the city ever again until we get the worm situation resolved.
Yeah, they did kind of, because you guys went to the gatehouse and you found that they weren't letting anyone out. You smuggled the stuff in, and then you went back and found out it was all Bravo von Helfrich's guards there now, which kind of
Yeah.
implied you guys talked to them and they couldn't get out. That might have been the game you missed, actually, Alex, but now that I'm thinking
Yeah.
about it, because
And
I
that-
know
That's when we
Ravit
started
talked to him.
going, well, fuck this guy in particular. Because if it was city guards, I could get us past this.
Right.
Yeah.
No, so
So,
there was a
okay.
little bit of it, but the widespread of the worm stuff doesn't happen until much later, and that's when it gets like really when people are now officially in their homes, like can't leave into the streets. I didn't know if I wanted to go that heavy-handed with it, but
Yeah. I never felt like leaving the city wasn't a choice. Like we couldn't just like cut our losses in
Oh.
time.
it must have been the
It's
game you
'cause of
missed.
the
They
Baron.
tried.
Yeah.
They definitely did
It was
try.
'cause-
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, it's because of the Baron. Because he wants his stupid crates. Let's go steal them back, I guess.
Let's go
Like-
throw him out of his tower.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely for sure. No, they did make an attempt. I was thinking it was either a game you missed or one Wolfer missed, where they tried to get out. And I couldn't remember if they were weakened at burning in him at the time, or if it was when you were working on the bike. But there was one of those scenes where I know
It was
definitely
the
happened.
weekend in burning one, I think. That
Yeah.
was earlier in the. Yeah.
Now, one
Yeah.
thing I did not originally intend for this campaign that you guys managed to do was just shoot Jeannie dead in her own home. And that was
Which time?
the first time, even. That was a total Chuck
First
move.
time.
Who is this we you're talking about? We didn't have Genie.
I think you gave us much of an option at that one.
Ravit
was,
killed Genie.
Yeah. That was
She
good.
was gonna kill Wolfram, but I couldn't allow it.
That's true.
He was the favorite intern. He was her favorite intern that we've ever had.
Mhm.
So she's like, I can't let it happen.
Reveat's my girl.
Shout out to
Spare me.
Leland for letting us shit on him for 3 weeks or however long.
Well, it made for interesting plot because you guys did a couple things with Golem technology I didn't intend. One, become one. That was never written, but then it happened and it worked out perfectly. And I was like, well, I killed Chuck, and that Ravit's literally working on a Golem, and they literally saw this happen like 2 days ago in their time. Like, there's no reason they can't do
And I
this.
can
So
make drugs now.
yeah,
So just
like
let's go.
it was not an intentional part of the story, but it worked out well. And I was like, well, okay, they're there. They could do this. Like, it'll be interesting character development for Ivan. He's now going to be a robot that intended for the Emperor.
Yeah, good stuff.
See.
So in
I'll
case,
be right
case
back.
you're curious, that was never intended. The Golem part was intended. As far as there being a Golem, becoming one was never part of the plan. But
It's just because that dude didn't respect the huddle.
he just did not respect
He
the
did not
huddle.
respect the huddle.
No, he didn't respect the
foul.
huddle at all. He had his court
How
sword
dare
ready to go.
Rules.
Everyone else respected the huddle. He was the only one.
Well, that's how you know he's the original big bad end guy for the campaign when he doesn't respect the huddle. That's
Yep. That's how you know. The headband huddle is sacred.
I'm just glad we became the big bad evil guys for the other people's campaign.
that was kind of funny. So, I guess what's the next interesting kind of plot point that when you move down the line was once you guys get the time machine made. You guys get the time machine ready to go.
I think the next interesting point was the cultists.
Or the cultist, yes. I guess there is. I was
Yeah.
trying to think which one happened first. And I guess, yeah, the cultist showed up
It
first.
was the cultists because that amped up our motivation by like 10,000%. We were like, oh fuck, we did it bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about the cultists made you suddenly feel like things were amped up, Lindy?
Well, the fact that they're like, we're gonna bring back this definitely possessed dead lady back, who's definitely not possessed, but we're like, she looks pretty possessed. Like, that dark lightning, like, I've seen Star Wars, that's a Sith Lord in waiting, just let me tell you.
Right.
But, that and the fact that they were just like had a production line going of like an assembly of fake. I'm like, these guys are organized. These guys are dangerous. This is bad. They're definitely a cult. And also, once we set their house on fire and unleashed the Light Eater, that was real bad.
That's when things really ramped up.
Yeah, specifically, and it almost didn't happen, but I was like, no, I might die denathoring this down into the basement, but I'm gonna do it. So I feel partially responsible for that.
Did the presence of a sudden cult make a difference for you, Chuck?
There's always a cult there lurking, right?
Yeah, I feel like that's true, but
Yeah. I don't know. It added another layer, right? Another bit of complication, and then actually learning that the plague doctor was the cult leader.
Definitely the cult leader. That guy.
No!
that guy.
But no, and then getting the little bit of tie in the fact that the one dude's assistant was also working against us by stealing it to try and resurrect. I mean, it was, added a fun little high-stake heist.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of extra mystery.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good addition.
I was curious how long it would take, because that's written that way from the get-go. I knew that from day one that he was working against him. So I already knew that was the case, and I already knew what that cult was doing. It was just, I wasn't sure how long it would take you guys to discover it.
I always thought he was sus, but I thought he was gonna like turn us into the authorities or the Baron. I didn't think he was cult leader McGee.
Yeah, I definitely thought he was working for the other team. Yeah.
Now, there is a cult leader profession. It's an advanced profession.
Yes.
And what's interesting about it, and what helped me shape how this character would work, is that it does not have incantation as a skill.
Oh.
It does not get a dot of incantation.
So he has to rely on cultists to do the magic.
He relies on all of his cultists to do the magic. But at the same time, he gets to use incantation as an untrained skill. So he can just try to kind of do it. So, but he gets hypnotized. He gets brainwashing effects instead. So he's a social class more than a caster class. And so what was interesting is that I wrote him then as he needed his girlfriend, who was like, he considered this divinely touched creature that went off the TREEFELL and died. He needs her back because he needs her to be able to lead the magic stuff that they want to do for the custodian. Yeah. So he became this social character more so than a magic user like Bravo von Helfrich is. So you didn't see him throwing firebolts or like trying to do anything magic because he's just running a scam on a guy who's a quack.
Scam on a quack.
So that's how I wrote him, was based off of reading how that expert profession is actually set up. It's kind of an interesting viewpoint, considering cultist is one of the 7 professions that actually get magic at the base tier. There's only like 7 or 8 that get it in all of the Zweihander professions that you can get at character creation. Only 7 of them get magic. So the odds of any magic is already rare.
Based on him, all those body parts were our body parts.
So it's it's an interesting play, because what it implies is that cults are never formed by the people who do it. It's always formed by just one social guy who gathers up all the other people and makes them do what they want. So it's an interesting take on how cults form when you read how the cult leader profession works.
I was going to say almost exactly like real life cults.
Yeah.
These guys don't really believe they're God.
Yeah, it's so anyway. So that was Marcus Wilde, and how he came about to be and why he ended up kind of where he was. But it was interesting to see how long it would take for you guys to uncover. Like, I really thought you'd pick up on it when Lindy took the witch stone out of his pocket, that he had one in his pocket. Like, not with the rest of it. He was just walking around with one in his pocket. And you guys carried it around for a while and still really didn't think too much about it until
I had a piece of witch stone in my pocket for the entire rest of the campaign.
Yeah.
Using
She
my
never once was a cult
sneaky
leader.
pocket thing, because I was a convict, and I was like, I can hide one thing super awesome. And this witch stone.
She never turned into a cult leader, and once we discovered that the apothecary guy was, of course, the cult leader, I mean, it just made perfect sense. I still I think maybe there was like some element I missed in that one game session I missed that had some clues in there, because I clearly thought that he was working for Bravo, and that he was just smuggling stuff on the sly to him, setting him up to fail, setting up the robbery, that kind of stuff. So
well, that was also Bravo's Witchstone, so him having it wasn't that weird to me. I was like, oh, he's probably taking it back to his boss in small pieces.
That's an interesting take I hadn't considered.
Yeah, no, I definitely thought it was Bravo's guy, or he was gonna turn us into like the city authority if he wasn't. On the off chance he wasn't Bravo's guy, he was gonna feel guilty about us being mean and stealing things and turn us into the police.
Yeah, for some political value or something.
The only thing that kept me from necessarily thinking that is like, if this is Bravo's dude, why is he smuggling this out one piece at a time rather than just coming in with the guard and killing everyone?
I also thought he could have been working for Bravo's second guy,
Boswell.
Because he wanted Boswell. I thought he was working for Bravo von Helfrich or Mr. Boswell, because Boswell was also working on projects that it sounded like he didn't necessarily want his boss to find out about. So I was like, it's one of those two guys. He's working for one of those.
Now, Mr. Boswell, and I'll say this, and it'll only mean something to Chuck, is a grave vivimancer by profession.
Oh.
Now, you only really saw that in the finale episode when he throws the shurikens at Alex, at Asher. That's the only time he uses any of that magic, that when he throws those knives, the Witchstone blades. That's the only time that you see it come out that would reveal that he's a grave vivimancer. But a grave vivimancer is a specialty class that works with the Skezric, the Skaven, if you will.
He got in and dropped a barrel bomb on him.
Yeah.
So, was there a tie between him and that creature we came across in the sewers?
Yes. The creature that you came across in the sewers is the small rat that Ravit takes back.
Whiskers. Too bad I never ran into him.
And that's the beginning of the Skerzek, and then the Skerzek then obviously take Mr. Boswell and train him up to be a grave vivimancer, which is why he comes out in a Kugelpanzer to try to chase down Asher, because the Skaven are much more advanced in their understanding of Witchstone than what.
I hope they all have French accents because of Ravit.
It is funny. That is something I could try to incorporate if they show up in Vigilantes of Later, that all the rat people speak French now. Thanks to
Oh my god.
There you go.
They're all French rats, like Ratatouille all over again.
Oh, little Whiskers, you are such a good rat.
But no, I just decided that like all that ooze that was in Warehouse 51 is basically like the Ninja Turtle ooze, and they just Whiskers gets into it and just mutates into a Skurzak and then becomes the first of the Skurzak. So he's kind of like one half Master Splinter, one half like nasty Rat Man. So who knows?
Nice.
It could go down with something like that in the next game. But that's he is intentionally. If you go down the Boswell path where you decide that you hate Bravo and you want to work with his assistant instead, which I don't know how that happens, but let's say it does. Like, for some reason.
His assistant's a lot less friendly and shit talks Mr. Bravo.
That is the path towards Hexer, and the path towards, like, this path you guys went down led towards Barnstormer being kind of like the role play class option for someone to take. If you go down the other path, you lead right into mutagens and Hexers, where you can become essentially Witcher, where they become monster hunters. They start working with the Skaven, things like that. Like, that's that path where you discover the Skurzak down there and the rat people, and there's a whole underbelly of the city full of these rat people and everything else. What you guys did that I didn't expect was give me a really good way to explain how it started. And that was when you just took the rat back in time. But this is just a nice touch.
Rat I can talk to. He's my best friend, and he's coming with us on this time travel adventure now. So
yeah, so that was just a nice touch at the end where I was like, oh, they even gave me a good loop to explain exactly how these people got started. Like, so no,
then we got mutated anyway. We didn't even need to go down the mutation route to become mutant monsters.
We're just really efficient.
We got everything done that we set out to accomplish.
So
technically, before it happened.
Yeah.
So that brings us to time travel and the Light Eater. So You burn down a cultist house, and it unleashes the Light Eater on the world in the form of this cultist lady you didn't know at the time.
If we hadn't burned it down, would it have happened later?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
It is very... The Light Eater, you were correct in your hypothesis that the Light Eater was very much hiding inside the cultist. And a lot of that for this running of it comes directly from what happened in Terror and TREEFELL.
Oh, yeah.
In my new running of it, I got to start this week, I don't have that ability because the Light Eater never came into the world. So I've got to tell it from a whole nother angle now about what happens when you actually win in Terror and TREEFELL instead of lose. So that's my job this week, is to figure out how to start that thing off. But for you guys, yes, it was very much hiding there, and it got into the city inside of her, and the cult leader was being manipulated by it, using her voice to make it think he could bring her back, but it wasn't. He was going to bring it back via her as a vehicle. So that was very much what, when he said, like, oh, I talked to her in the dreams, this, that, the other, he's talking to the Light Eater. It's just messing with him.
Oh, yeah, I figured. It didn't sound like, but I wasn't going to tell cultist McGee that.
Yeah, he wouldn't have believed you if you had told him anyway.
Particularly not after the stiletto dance.
No.
So that was very much part of what the plot was going to be, that he was going to awaken it. What I wanted was for you guys to have an option to decide what you wanted to do. Help him, stop him, and try to stop him. We
tried to stop him.
Yeah. It went so well.
I say we did it. We succeeded.
I mean, you went back later,
Via
found
time
him, and
travel.
killed him to get the book. So
Yeah.
it worked.
Yeah.
All's well that ends well.
Now,
The ends justify the means.
Yeah.
and it was roughly around this same time that they get the bike finished and the difference engine working.
Mm-hmm.
And
Thank God.
all the work that you guys had to do to help them get to this point. And then Asher finally gets his chance to be a barnstormer. Now,
I fucked it up.
we were the first on-stream appearance for the vehicle combat rules, upon which we used approximately 2 rules: gun it, and more gun it. So it was a nice. I had a nice display that put all the rules on there, but we didn't get to really use too many of them because Asher's critical failing of just trying to drive forward ended up.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there would have, if you had a chance to do it over again, would you do anything different, Alex?
I mean, there were big demons chasing us, so gunning it felt like the right choice.
It's
I
true.
agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where I was. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
really.
probably would have started off a little slower just to make sure we hit, 88 meters per second at the right time instead of a little early.
Yeah, because you were over-gunning it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
You
but
were-
there was demons chasing us and Mr. Boswell, so we were
the
like,
river
just go.
bending.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
The
kind of
light
wonder
eater
if
had come to kill us all.
I kind of wonder if you would have had like demons landing in front of us and blocking parts of the road that we had to like go around, or
Mhm.
They
That sort of
technically were.
Yeah.
But he
But
kept
Mr.
gunning
Boswell
it.
was chasing us,
The Light Eater was
and the light eater
behind
was
you.
too.
And they were
Yeah.
grabbing onto you as you were going past them and trying to grapple themselves up to you. So they weren't chasing you. They were literally in front of you. You were like resuming
the light
past
eater
them.
was chasing us.
The light eater
and
was
Mr.
behind you.
Boswell was chasing us, and those
Yes.
are 2 big incentives to gun it.
Yeah.
Yep.
If Asher
We
had had
fought
2
the other
hands,
demons.
if Asher had 2 hands, I would have definitely fixed a military lance to the front of the motorcycle and run people over. But I had to use one arm to ignite and one arm to steer. So.
Yeah, I feel like if we had more obstacles, in the road or something to force you to turn and move or not be full gunning it, I think that would get the desired response of like trying some more of the rules. Because the way it was structured, I think I don't see another option besides gun it, and it just so happened the dice didn't love us.
Yeah, the dice really didn't help any.
At least the trip back didn't wind up being something we had to worry about.
Yeah, just crash it once and you got it taken care of.
So once you guys well, I guess we'll talk a little bit about this just because it might be kind of an interesting take. But it was at this point in the story where I reached out to my buddy Lee House, and I was like, if they're really going back in time, they will never know where to go or what to do if they don't have a guide. Mm-hmm. And I know that Lee's favorite character was Everest from Terra and TREEFELL. Like, of all the characters he's played in all the systems, Everest is his favorite. Which is funny because he randomly rolled the thing he hates the most. Foppish elves. And so he got an elven fop, and he hated it with a passion until he got done playing it, and then he's loved it ever since. So I asked Lee if he wanted to come back just to play the guide, because his character is one that he intentionally abandoned the rest of the party to live so he could appear in the sequel. So I wanted to honor his decisions. So I let him come back to play your guys' guide. So could you talk about how you felt about the sudden addition of an extra player for those couple games?
I wish we were a nicer group of characters.
I've had better interns.
Addition. Oh.
I mean, obviously, look at Wolfram.
Yeah.
Such a better intern.
Yeah,
He turned out fine.
He turned out great. He got
It's an
promoted.
impossible standard, really, guys.
That's the
Sorry.
difference.
True.
You know, Wolfram was worried about continuing our brand, and that's something we need from employees.
Yeah.
Did you feel like Everest was a little just too worried about his own neck? Is that what the
A little
problem
bit.
was?
I mean,
Yeah, a
like,
little bit.
the headband gang works together,
Yeah.
which is why I feel like he'd be like, we were so mean. I was like, out of character, I'd be like, I'm so sorry. But in character, I'd be like, yeah, no, shut up. Stop talking, intern. Get your ass over here, intern. Like, we were just a bunch of bullies.
Nope.
We really were.
But it fits so well. Because I think if we hadn't been bullies, he would have tried to, like, pull some stuff on us or get out of there, but he was too scared.
Well, for what it's worth, he didn't tell me, but I think Lee loved every minute of getting to be back. Like, he
It was fantastic. It was
I think
fantastic.
he brings a certain energy with him, and Everest is a great character for that energy of his. So
He'd be like, how'd the game go? And I was like, we were such mean bullies to this poor guest.
Yeah.
Like, he died, and I was like, nah, you ain't done being an intern yet. Oh.
give me more of the magic cocaine. We gonna make this guy come back to life.
He hasn't suffered enough. He's still an intern. He hasn't told us. Also part of it was he's like, I swear, that's everything I know. And then he'd remember something else and be like, well, that would have been useful 10 minutes ago.
It was literally me reminding Lee what he was supposed to remember.
But in game,
kind of intentionally waiting until after he needed it to tell him.
and it just came off as worst
That's the best
intern
way to do
ever.
it.
You're the
And it
worst
made Ravine
homeless guy
so
we've
mad.
ever added to our party.
One of the other players from Terra and TREEFELL went back and watched episode 8 when you guys first get back to in time with him. He was just like, Dustin, like, you're so mean. And he's like, but you put so many good Easter eggs into that episode for those of us who played the first game. Like, he's like, it's going to add so much for, like, the players to go watch that, or for you guys to go back and watch Terra and TREEFELL and see, like, what you caused kind of incidentally now. Like, there's a lot there to, like, you can watch it now and just be like, oh, that's actually Asher. Yeah, that's... Greta did that.
Asher is the Jeepers Creepers monster.
That's right.
Like before.
So it's there is a bit of interesting kind of a twist with all that kind of went down. So I was a little nervous because I wanted to make sure that I knew where I was headed with this. Once you guys decided to go back in time, I knew that it was going to come to a head where you guys were going to have to meet the cast from TREEFELL, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to do that as NPCs or have the players come back. And what was important to me was to feel like that the spotlight didn't get taken off of you guys, because you guys are my cast for this particular game. I want to make sure that it stayed on you guys as much as possible, even though you made this choice to go back and interfere with things that you were not a part of initially. So there was a weird point there where I was like, well, how do I do this? So I wanted to bring Lee in first as a guide, because you guys would need one. And that was kind of a good gauge for me then to figure out, like, and when you guys kind of adopted him as your intern immediately, I was like, no, this is going to work out all right, I think. Because then we'll have to deal with everyone for one session at the very end. So, and boy, what a session was that. So I think it took me a few days of going on my normal 3-mile walk in the morning, just toying about in my head how I wanted to bring this down, where I could make sure that everything that went on wasn't just a rehash of the Terran TREEFELL cast last game. And I knew that was going to have to still happen inside the temple. But I was like, something else has to happen outside the temple. Because it occurred to me after watching...
Kill that kid. We had no qualms about it.
Yeah, that kid was going to die if it was up to you. So
He did.
I don't care what Ivan's rules say, Rule 10. It's out the window for this kid.
Hey,
It's the B clause underneath it.
yeah, there's a
world saving clause.
Yeah, exceptions are made for apocalyptic scenarios.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it basically just says, in case you really want to. And then
Yeah, pretty
okay.
much.
Yeah.
I mean,
In case it's necessary, in case no other alternative presents itself.
Ivan's rules of the road are really like Ivan's suggestions for the road.
pretty much. I mean,
We adhered to them pretty well, though.
Mhm.
Now, I wasn't positive I could one-up myself from World on Fire, which is episode 10 of Terran TREEFELL. I was pretty confident for a long time that through the help of really bad Roll20 dice for my players and their ability to try to pay to win and watch it go from fails to critical fails 11 times, I wasn't sure I could write a better ending to a story. And then as I was walking, I was like, well, clearly the only way that this can go down is to have the future come back and try to stop them the same way they came back to try to stop the future. So it was the only thing that made sense to me. So I was like, well, first thing I could do is just drop a Doom ship on this map. So that was the Star Destroyer just immediately. I was like, that's the first thing that has to come into play is a giant Star Destroyer manned by Ravit's father. And we'll just make some vague mention of having to obtain something, which I already knew was Wolfram's book, but I didn't say that, hey, get the book, because that'd be too obvious. So I just wanted to layer in that immediate of like, what the hell scenario did you just walk into sort of deal. And I felt like that was really at this point the only thing that made any sense whatsoever. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I don't think any of you could rate yourselves more than about a 2 of expecting Star Destroyer in the finale, right?
yeah, that was a surprise. Yeah.
Yeah,
That was
surprise achieved. Yeah.
I did not think the future was going to come stop us.
No,
I didn't think so
No.
either.
that was not the thing I thought was going to happen.
No, it makes you wonder how badly we screwed it up that the future had to come back and stop us.
I thought we were going to have to fight the other party.
I thought we were going to have to fight another demon that was coming in to contest
Yeah.
the other one.
I
But no, the
suspected
future
demons.
was not it.
Not the future.
I thought the other party would think we were the demons trying to stop them.
Also,
No,
that I
well,
was like,
that
we might
too.
either going to fight the other party
Yeah.
or demons.
Now, did you find it a little strange once you met the TREEFELL cast and you met Shoshi, the player of Zelina, who just tried to kill you when she was a Light Eater possessed, knife wielding demon like thing, and then you meet Zelina and she's so nice and trying to do the right thing? Were you like, oh no, that's
No,
We've got
because we
bad
knew
news
she
for
was
your future.
demon possessed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Light Eater. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you
It
can't
was the
fool
Light
us
Eater,
with that
not her.
niceness. We know where you're going.
Is that
Well-
a vessel of evil? Yeah.
Uh huh.
I mean, I think it was. I think I think at that point, and I think me and Jeff talked about this a little bit on Wisdom Check a week or two ago, where whatever you have as your vehicle throughout the game, your finale has to just shovel all of that right back into it. And so that's what I was doing. I was like, I'm putting as many of the elements of this game back into this final battle as I can. So I'm like, this airship's going to show up, and it's going to drop a bunch of genies on some Hal Davidson motorcycles, and they're going to try to run them down and kill them, and they're going to have to try to get Wolfram's book, and that's going to be the end of this whole thing, right? That's how this whole thing's going to go down. It'll have Ravit's father on top of it, because she, in spite of my efforts, avoided him at all cost. And I tried to get an interaction in there, but you just ducked him at every turn.
I wanted the interaction. Ravit did not. So,
Yeah.
and I thought she was going to fail more on avoiding those rolls to avoid interaction, but she didn't. I was like,
Nope.
dang, girl.
Of all the times to be successful, it was avoiding Dad that you
Right?
did it. So,
Whoops. Yep. That's funny.
so do you
Yeah.
feel like there was anything that I missed plot wise? Is there anything that felt unresolved by the time it was done for you?
What would have happened if they didn't get Wolfram's book?
Mm.
If they what?
If they didn't get Wolfram's book?
If they hadn't gotten Wolfram's book?
Uh-huh.
Well, so that was kind of the weird catch-22 of it. Now, depending on how you decided to get it out of there, or how. I don't really know what Wolfram's plan was for getting the book out of that scenario, because he didn't know the future was going to be coming in to get it. So he hadn't made any plans on how to get it out of there. Like, I think he even joked, said, "We'll just get a courier."
Well, he gave it to Everest and was like, "Go."
In a pinch, he did. Once everything started happening, he gave it to the scared elf who was trying to run away and fled with it.
The original idea was he was going to send it to himself.
Yeah, he was just... But because I knew you guys at the end of this combat, if you succeeded, were going to turn to Witchstone, the book was just going to be sitting there. So even if the future fails, I knew that a younger Bravo von Helfrich was going to show up immediately after, because he can see the future. So he already knew how this was going to play out. Everything except his own death, dealing with Asher up on top, he knew everything else. So he gets there, and he's going to just pick the book up right from the Witchstone Remains of Wolfram, and the future then is secured kind of either way. All you did by giving it to Everest was give me a reason to kill Everest on screen before.
Which was very satisfying.
Which was, except that Lee wasn't here to see his own favorite character's death, unfortunately. So and it was kind of poetic, because he ran away to save himself the first time, and this time by me having to repeat his actions of running away, Wolfram hands him the football and he gets tackled on the 5-yard line, like trying to reach the end zone. So, he... I don't know how that would have played differently if he'd have been here, because he probably wouldn't have been running. Maybe he would have. He ran the first time. Maybe he'd have ran this time too.
Yeah.
But
I was surprised by how okay the cast was of switching allegiance. It was like immediately like, "Hey, it's bad. You should kill that chick." And they're like, "Okay, let's do this." Like,
you mean the TREEFELL cast?
Some of them wasn't still okay, but they were too preoccupied with all the other shit going on. Like, I'm in a corner with skeletons. I can't do anything about that right now.
I think that I think it's fair on their behalf to say that you guys have had like 3 weeks since Horror and Huttenberg ended, and you think of how cloudy all the details might be a little bit for you guys. They had 6 months. They were like, that game ended in March. Like, right when the quarantine was, like, really kicking off. Like, right around that time was when that game was ending. So, like, you think about how long this quarantine has felt for us in real life. Like, that's how long ago the end of their game was. So, I think for some of them, they were just, like, there. They were like, yeah, we remember we were not going to kill this girl. But then we remember there's this demon. And, they kind of had a little bit of hindsight 2020, maybe, that this demon is a worse idea than they thought originally. So I think they were just kind of like, this time they were just like, hey, this other group of people, they're weird, they showed up, and they got stuff that says they're going to help. We'll take the help. And I think that's the route they went this time around.
We were very convincing.
And then you did the social interaction. It was so fitting for Wolfram.
Yeah. I probably could have oversold a little more of exactly what your appearances look like. I think I had you guys kind of describe yourselves briefly, but I probably could have gone into much more graphic detail that would have made you all seem much creepier. Because there's probably some truth to that, but at the same time, like, you guys...
Creepy could have been what made it convincing. It's like, you have to stop this or this happens.
Yeah, there is maybe some truth to that as well.
This is you. We are you from the future. That's what we should have said.
Oh, that would be so funny.
So with that, I think we have to talk a little about the barrel bomb.
It's a good barrel bomb.
Barrel bomb.
That barrel bomb, it got rolled a long way. Like,
it did. I was determined to keep it.
It was
I
his own
wanted
character.
to use it.
Had a lot of development,
Yeah.
It did.
Had a token. Everything.
So
its performance was a little wooden.
So many potential uses for the barrel bomb. Like, it became, once the Witchstone was kind of out of the way, it became like its own secondary MacGuffin for the story. It was just like, the rest of the time, it was, we're going to lug this thing around until we find something to lob it at. And finally you did.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, we did. Ugh.
So...
It was good, too.
So, Alex,
target presents itself.
You finally got to use it.
Yeah, that was my bookend epic moment. It was like jumping from my horse to the cart, dropping a barrel bomb on a Super Star Destroyer.
And you succeeded with the heating it on the Star Destroyer, too.
Yeah, that was the journey of Asher's career. That was the trajectory. That was just that was the exact right moment, and like I feel like I feel like when Dustin was designing the encounter, he wanted me to go steal one of the motorcycles and run around and do my barnstormer thing.
Yeah, that was pretty much right. Yeah.
But you had wings.
Yeah.
And then I was like, no, I'm going to go blow up the Star Destroyer instead because that guy kicked me out of the army.
It's fair.
Sorry, Dad.
It worked out well. Like I said, it was not how I thought you were going to do it, but I totally intended for that barrel bomb to get used on that ship.
Mm.
I just thought you would take the pod thing back up there.
Yeah,
like,
we don't
I honestly
drive
thought
that
Ravit
thing.
would do it. That's why I put her
Yeah.
father on the ship, was because I thought Ravit's going to roll this barrel bomb up there. Like, she'll run into that
Considered it,
thing.
but
and,
I was like, Ravit doesn't know how to drive anything. So, like,
Yeah.
should have had to have, there would have been someone in there for her to go, get us up there or I blow us up.
Oh, I didn't mean the motorcycles that the genies were
No,
on.
but the little...
The little pod thing itself,
Yeah.
yeah.
She
Yeah.
assumed
Yeah.
that needed to be driven.
Yeah, no, that thing just, you hit a button and it goes back. It
she
had been
wouldn't
super
know.
simple.
She would have had to go inside. Now, she was going to go, if we had another turn of combat, she was going to run into there to try to get Wolfram's book back.
Oh,
If we
yes.
had one
that's right.
more round, she would have been in that pod.
Yeah, that
And
became...
then probably...
Because Wolfram handed it to a fleeing Everest, it became kind of a weird situation where, like, I had to run down an NPC to get the book because that's what the genies were told to do. So they can't they're golems. They can't really disobey. Like, so they run, they do that, and then like, well, there's no reason for them to go into the temple after you guys now. They're just gonna run back. So it's like I had this like whole like encounter like thing in my head like all planned out, and then like because more of you guys ran down into the temple than I expected. And left
it was
poor
just
Ravit to
me.
fend for herself up there. Like,
I kicked ass on those robots.
You did.
Shockingly.
Yes, you did.
you did.
And I
I was
didn't
like,
die.
We're all dead anyway, guys. So if this doesn't work, we're done. So
Thought the rogue won this.
Yeah.
that's exactly what we did.
Uh-huh.
So,
I really wish my spear from heaven would have worked on Bravo
Oh.
Helfrich.
That would have been
Yes.
so cool.
Yeah.
that would have been nice.
Yeah.
But it did get the desired effect.
It did.
It did. It made him pause long enough that he missed with his Thunderbolt,
Which made us able to get the spell off.
which allowed the spell to get off. So it was like, not only did Asher like throw the barrel bomb onto the airship, but he then flew down and really disrupted the magic casting of the big bad end guy. Really, I mean, because at the end of the day, that's one of the reasons why I knew Bravo had to show back up at the end, like from the future, like future Bravo had to come back. Even though he's part golem, he's kind of cyborgish. Like, he survives your guys' yeet out the window and gets put back together by Mr. Boswell.
Ridiculous.
So,
He's a 6 million gold crown man.
yeah. So,
We should have
Technology.
dismembered him and then yeeted him out the window.
We should have.
Next time.
Next
Next
Shot
time.
his head.
Well, we definitely killed him first, but
We did.
Okay.
well,
We
you
could've
decided
killed
he
him
was sus. You just ejected him out the airlock. You did not anticipate that there were people outside the airlock who could put him back together again. So,
Yeah. We figured the splat from hitting the pavement at that height would have been enough.
well, that's
Yeah.
the funny thing about golem technology, as you learned,
yeah.
is you could be
Yeah.
dead, and they can pull your soul back out of there and put it into something else. So,
The funny thing is, we all wondered where the ooze came from in the sewer, and it was his blood dripping down. And
now you know. Now you
there
know.
it is, you know?
Yep.
So, I think that, like I said, I knew that I was going to have a few of those surprises in the last episode, and I think just based on your guys' reactions when they happened, I think they landed pretty well.
Mhm.
I hope that you guys feel like it closed out your guys' story pretty well.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody expected for you guys to turn into Witchstone when it was all said and done.
No,
Mm-mm.
no.
That took me a little while to come to a conclusion for that. Because I had to deal with, on one of my walks, like the whole hour and a half I walked, I thought to myself, like, what happens when they disrupt time? Like, I knew I was going to steal the Ascension Paradox rules for tampering with it on the way to the end. But once you actually do something that alters the course of the future, even the slightest, like, I was like, I don't want to do the Back to the Future just fade out of existence. That's kind of dull. I was like, I got to figure something that hit me. Actually, for the inspiration for this, I stole it from an X-Men comic. For those of you who are familiar with the Age of Apocalypse,
Mhm.
when Legion goes back and kills Professor Xavier, all the X-Men in the current time see their reality crystallize. They can see it off on the horizon. Everything starts turning to crystal, and it slowly sweeps over them. And right as it's sweeping over them, like Rogue kisses Gambit, and they're all frozen, and Sabretooth and Wolverine are fighting, and they stab each other, and then they freeze, and they're all crystal. And I decided that's essentially what needs to happen, is they just have to... everything that's out of place would crystallize and turn into Witchstone. So that's actually where I got the inspiration for that, was from an old comic, that I read 20 years ago. So, and I just thought Witchstone is perfect, because then it explains where all the Witchstone came from. Since they stopped the Light Eater, which was the original explanation for the Witchstone, I had to have a new one, and I was like, well, it'll just be them. So you guys turn into Witchstone, and your bodies crumble and become the very Witchstone that you effectively then will steal a year later.
So it turns out we had ownership over it the entire time.
But at least when we steal it the next time, there's not going to be a Light Eater to contend with. It's going to be
That's right.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they were our bodies and nobody consented. That's a massive HIPAA violation.
It's real fitting, though. Because Ravit snorted a whole lot of us.
Yeah, yours was extra refined.
He made all of us snort a whole bunch of us.
I did. I did snort the most, though, so I'll take
Here,
that
sniff your ashes.
responsibility.
Go.
Yep.
Ravit did all the drugs this campaign. She had to do the most laudanum to heal. She had to do the most tinctures. She had to do the most smelling salts. Well, I don't know. Asher may have took more smelling salts than Ravit did.
By the end, yeah.
By the
Asher
end,
was
yeah.
given more smelling salts.
Yeah, that's the right way.
I was peer pressure.
I ended with 8 chaos ranks.
Jesus.
You were close. And I don't think we did chaos in the last session.
I only had 1 corruption from the last session.
Oh, yeah, you wouldn't have gotten
From
the last session was so
which stood in my
combat.
pocket.
Yeah.
So I was like, yes. I was so
exactly
worried.
4 and 4.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Oh, that's funny.
if these were longer campaigns, you'd have been able to reach 10.
I was
with no
8
problem.
and 2. Because there was a couple sessions where I gained multiple levels of corruption.
Yeah.
Chaos
You
ranks.
did good, kid. You did good.
I think the most I got was like 28 or something.
Jesus.
It was a lot.
You may have single-handedly had more corruption ranks than the entire cast of Terran TREEFELL by the end of their sessions. Like,
That's great.
they did
What
not
happened
get nearly as
if you-
corrupted as you guys did. Like,
If you fill out the full, you're also awful people. If you filled out all the chaos ranks, what happens?
okay,
Disorder.
you get a disorder. Like, you gain a disorder. There's a whole bunch of them in the book you can pick from. And then you reset both ranks back to 0. And you start over and see which one you fill up first again. If you get more order ranks and you hit 10, you get a fate point, which is one of those save your life cards. That's the only way to get a fate point.
Oof.
Yeah.
Oof.
So it's really, that's why you have to take a drawback to get an extra one at character creation.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Worth
that's how the alignment system technically works in
I was
Zweihander.
almost there. I almost made it in the race.
So as far as alignment systems actually have an effect, Jeff, maybe this was one that works for you a little?
Yeah, I think if we got to see more of it, like if there was a longer game and see some of the results of that, yeah, I think so. Because I don't know that we really dabbled into the order alignment versus chaos alignment too much. At least I didn't.
It only matters in social intrigue and social roles. The difficulty is adjusted based on whether you're the same alignment or different alignment. So if you're chaos dealing with chaos, it's easy. If you're chaos dealing with someone who's order, you're at a -10. So it immediately starts like challenging instead of standard. So
yeah, that's pretty cool.
So it's a small adjustment. It's not overbearing, but it is a little different.
I like that they have a system that's unique to each character. That you have your own style of order and chaos. So that's a good touch. I like that.
Now there are a few professions. If you take them, they make you change what those alignments are.
Oh.
Like Scott player Nigel, he took military officer as his intermediate in Terran TREEFELL, so he immediately becomes duty and hatred.
Interesting.
Because being a military officer means that he's been in the crap long enough that he's developed a hatred for people, but he does, he's all duty, so he's kind of an interesting effect. So at this point, what I'm going to do is we're going to take just a real quick break, because I'm going to give all my players here just a quick chance to think a little bit about their new selves. Their characters undid time. They fixed a lot of problems, and now they've got a whole new future waiting for them. And I'm currently working on what some of those futures look like. And while I give them a few minutes to think about it, we're going to flip over here, and I'm going to quickly do my player cast announcements for Bitter Harvest, which starts here in 2 weeks. I'm finally getting around to running Bitter Harvest on stream. I got 4 players who have their characters made off stream. I'm not doing the character creation on stream for them. If they survive, they win the reward of getting to do something about Marie here on stream. So they are currently hyped and ready to go. I'm going to flip over here real quick. My players, I got 4 of them. The first one is going to be Debbie Snacks. Snacks, if you're familiar with her, she's been on the Liching Hour for Girls Night Out. She has been playing on the Liching Hour's Viva La Dungeon, and she'll be. Oh, she's in the chat right now. There's Debbie Snacks, and
Threw a
an
sub at us earlier.
avid connoisseur of apparently beer and cheese.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We created an entire thread in our Discord dedicated to her love of beer and cheese. So you can go there and enjoy your love of beer and cheese with her, and get to meet Debbie in a couple weeks when she comes on live for Bitter Harvest. Playing with her also is a good longtime friend of ours, former roommate of Jeff's actually, Malice from Malice Conspiracy. Malice is going to be here. He has rolled himself up a character. It's his first time playing Zweihander. Alongside those two will be Georgie from Terror and TREEFELL. If you're familiar with Georgie, who was here, played Dr. Pathos, who died early on. Unfortunately, showed up at the last game session still grievously wounded, so Dr. Pathos didn't last very long this time either. So Georgie is our third player, and our last one is, if you're on our Discord, it's Beauty and the Nerd. Christine, she's going to be here. This is her first time playing with us, first time playing Zweihander for all of them, I think, except Georgie. Georgie's the only one who has any experience. He went from the rookie who's never played a game to the one with most experience in Zweihander suddenly. So that'll be my group of 4, and again, this is for a Bitter Harvest. There are 4 players and the tokens I built up for them for their coming game. We got a human cheapjack. We have a halfling watchman. We have an ogre pamphleteer, which is a newspaper, and a gnome. What's the last profession? Why am I thinking of it? Oh, quartermaster. Gnome quartermaster for the last one. So I have ran 2 off-stream Bitter Harvest runs, one at my game shop live with 3 players, and my off-stream Terra and TREEFELL group successfully got through Bitter Harvest. And one of them survived, the others did not. And so far, neither group has made it through intact. So the current group has their own chat, and they're getting cocky. So tune in a couple of weeks. Bitter Harvest is going to start. I expect it to run 2 sessions, maybe 3, and then something about Marie will be probably another 2 sessions after that if they survive. Or they may have to roll an entire new set of characters for something about Marie. We'll see. We'll see how it goes, if any of them make it through. So that's coming up again. What? That's true. That's awesome. So we're going to head back over here to our live screen. And again, they're going to be here at 5 p.m. Central Time in 2 weeks. Starting a Bitter Harvest, and we'll see how well they fare. It's going to be good. If you're not familiar with the Bitter Harvest, I'm not going to talk about it right now because a couple of them are watching, but it's a fantastic story. It is the preset adventure that comes in the back of the Zweihander Core Rulebook. So if you have your Zweihander Core Rulebook, you can find Bitter Harvest in the back. I run it about as straight from the book as I can. I've found that putting a certain amount of emphasis on a few important points causes a very, very different reaction in the player group when they get to certain parts in the story. And so that's what I'm going to try to focus on doing again this time around and see if we get a different result or the same old result I've gotten the last 2 times where players have literally killed each other over the decision. So we'll see how it goes. Good luck, players. What we're going to do here last is we're going to talk a little bit with my Horror and Huttenberg cast here, and we're going to get a little idea of who they think their characters are in the new future timeline. where they see themselves going now that maybe they don't have a light eater in the way. Are they still in the headband gang? Did Ravit become a nun? We'll just kind of go down here and get a little idea of where you think your character is. If they took a different intermediate type profession, what would they have been, maybe? And just give me a little idea of what you think would be different for them now. What do you think you've changed? I'm not saying anything you tell me is going to happen in Vigilantes of Valandria, but I just want an idea of where you think you've gone. Chuck, where's Ivan at these days?
He's still in the headband gang. Still doing
is.
crime, starting fires. He was well committed to the headband gang long before these events. So, that's where it's going to be at. More stealing. That's it, I guess. I don't know. I don't see Ivan making any changes for the intermediate profession.
You say he still goes highwayman?
Yeah, still stealing.
Now, if he ever made it to advanced tier, what would he take next?
Oh, I don't know. I would have to look at those.
I had something in mind for him, but I was going to see what you told me.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I'm going to make you wait till he appears in Vigilantes to find out what he becomes at N tier. Because I am going to take your characters, advance them all the way to advanced tier.
Ooh.
So
there you go.
Everything in Vigilantes is going to be at advanced tier. So it's all going to be 3 professions deep on pretty much everything. Like, it's going to be dangerous. So, Jeff, for Wolfram, his book is out there.
Yeah. It all depends on if he gets to read it or not. Because I think if he read it, he's going to take a completely life-altering course. Otherwise, he's going to repeat what he did. So if he gets to read it, I think he would not be a rake. He would not join the life of crime. And he'd probably become some, dickish, academic guy that is, living the high life in his palace and, stealing credit for all the devices that he can and going on from there.
Now, fun fact. You talk about rakes as though people who are cast out of the aristocracy do it on their own accord.
Well, I assumed in our story that Wolfram did it intentionally to go into his path, yeah.
He may still be a rake.
Yeah.
He just may not have been on his own accord.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about what you're planning to do, so I think I see where you're going with that.
I think he's still a rake. At least initially. So do you think what else he might take then after that? He's probably not going to join the headband gang and be a sellsword then after that. Do you have other ideas of you don't have to know the names of the professions exactly, but just an idea of where you think you might go?
Well, okay, so in the situation you're describing there, it's the book is out and about, it's slanderous, it gets him kicked out of the aristocracy. So it would have to be something trying to work underground to dispel this problem, become maybe he becomes cult leader, I don't know. Some kind of way of getting back at the man and removing this book from existence and getting himself back into his proper place. So
In the headband gang.
he may in fact try to clamp down on the headband gang since they're I think that may be what happens, because if it's really what gets him kicked out and he's not down with this, and it's just the association with these people is what causes it, he's gonna stamp them out.
I think it's safe to say that book will be a scandal in the new timeline. Lindy, where's Ravit at? Is she in the nunnery somewhere? Is she?
Well, I can tell you she's definitely not in the nunnery. I think she would have gone one of 2 routes, especially if we did the heist and we didn't just be like, okay, here's your stuff, bye, we're out of town now. Because there wouldn't have been a worm infestation, because there wouldn't have been the demons. I think she would have either stuck with the headband gang, basically new family, and continued on with the apothecary route and just been the dopest drug dealer for the headband gang. Or
you still see her in the headband gang then, you think, most likely?
So she would go 2 ways, and I'm not sure which one she would do.
What's the other?
One route is headband gang, go hardcore drug dealer, just be in it, be like her and Ivan besties, because Wolfram's not there anymore, so her and Ivan.
To get a new intern.
New intern.
Being the intern.
I miss you guys.
Master. Or she would get out and go get married to someone in the aristocracy, or burger class, because she was a burger class.
Yeah.
And her dad's a general, so he could smooth over that criminal record. Be like, what criminal record? I don't know what you're talking about. That was somebody else. It's not on file anywhere. So she'd either marry up and get out of the life of crime or buckle down hard. That'd be one of those two. I could see it going either way, just depending on how the heist goes.
Anyone else shipping Wolfram and Revit right now?
Oh, man.
See it.
So,
He's a young lad.
Asher?
Asher would still be in the headband gang, but also be a crash test dummy for Wolfram.
Now, do you think
For-
that
For Halford, not for
For
Wolfram.
Hal.
for Halford,
Yeah.
you think he's still in the headband gang? You think he still goes and works with Halford and becomes a barnstormer?
Yeah, I think he's still. I think his end goal is to be like a time cop or something
A
crazy.
time cop.
Wow.
A time traveling warrior who goes around and solves problems for people in the past.
All right. Well, there you have it. There's their predictions. I've already got some groundwork set for what I think I'm going to do with at least a few of the characters. So I'm not going to reveal exactly what I'm doing for Vigilantes of Valandria yet.
Mhm.
You'll have to tune in starting near the end of January, beginning of February, one of those Sundays. I'm going to pinpoint down for the exact start time. But what I do have is a quick intro trailer that I've already shared with a few people, but this will give you just a little glimpse and also the cast announcements for who's going to be playing in Vigilantes of Valandria. I have 6 players lined up, and this little trailer here will help you learn who they're going to be. So I'm going to mute myself so I don't accidentally talk in the middle of this, and be back here in just a moment. Alright, and we are back. So that's a little glimpse of who my players are going to be. I see a few of them are already in the chat. Thank you guys for showing up today. I hope you're excited for late January or early February start for Vigilantes of Valandria. They have not made characters yet. They'll be doing that live at the first session, just like the Horror and Huttenberg group did. But they are going to roll their first profession, just like these guys did. They will then get the Vigilante profession as their intermediate tier profession. They don't get a choice. I'm giving it to them. And then they will get to pick their advanced tier profession, and that's the one they will work through. And that will get to help them have a little say-so in what their characters are going to be from that point on. It is the third installment of my TREEFELL trilogy, Terran TREEFELL, Horror and Huttenberg, and then Vigilantes of Valandria. And you guys can look forward to seeing that. It'll be another 9, 10, 13 game long session. We're going to be moving the time slot back. It's going to be later in the day on Sundays when that rolls around. Bitter Harvest is going to stay here at the same time that Huttenberg was, so you can expect 5 p.m. for the next couple of months until we get to the end of January. There may be 1 week there where I have to run something about Marie to finish it and then turn right into character creation for Vigilantes of Valandria. That may be a very long day for me depending on how this works out, but we will make sure it happens and it gets done, and you'll find it right here. So I think any parting words from the cast at this point? Chuck, you want to go first?
Well, I do. I saw a couple errors there in your intro video, man.
What?
Yeah, Gentendo and Frenet are both Defenders of Cobalt as well.
I didn't know if they were official cast or not. I didn't know what their allegiances officially were with you. So
yeah, I stapled them into it.
okay, I didn't want to speak for your whole group. I knew they were starting to play games with you, but I didn't want to throw them in there completely. So especially since Brendan has his own stream where he does his own stuff too. I didn't know how in he was. So
yeah, so you get 3 Defenders of Kobold for that one.
Oh man, 3 kobolds. I should have kept it at 2.
Bunch of assholes.
I'm gonna put 2 knives in there and make them knife fight over it and see who comes out. You know,
You're gonna be in so much trouble, Dustin.
Yeah, that's great. Anyway, I don't know. Defenders of Kobold. That's me, us. Find us places.
All right, Jeff.
Well, awesome cast coming up for that. I'm looking forward to it. Kick-ass cast for Horton Huttenberg, of course. I love playing with all of you guys. Glad to get another chance to come and say hello to you all. And come check us out here on this channel for all kinds of shenanigans that we're going to be up to. I'll be playing some video games this week, so look out for some more Dead by Daylight, probably.
All right, Lindy.
Oh, that was so much fun. This whole campaign, it was nice talking about it again because I had a blast with it. I loved the characters, and the Headband Gang will forever live on in my heart. You could find me online at Laugh Love Lindy, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, etc. I play in and GM a lot of tabletop RPGs of both lighthearted and grimdark nature, and I like games, so I'm down to game and stuff. And I can't wait to see if Ravit pops up in the next Vigilantes of Valandria. That'll be fun. So,
Alex.
Yeah, I'm Alexander Thomas. I am the executive producer at the Untold Stories Project, where we do a whole bunch of RPG live streams. Right now we're doing Monday one-shots. We're also doing an East Texas University campaign that does a whole bunch of fun on Tuesday nights. So if you want to come see me be a East Texas nerd, come hang out with us. And I'm the author of the Titan City Chronicles, a fantasy noir superhero series that's available anywhere books are sold. The first book's called The Magician's Sin. And I had a great time playing with you guys. I really, really appreciate Dustin bringing me on and hanging out with you guys. It was so much fun.
Yeah, it was a blast.
All right. And again, a special thanks to Hope Lavelle, who was the player of Greta. She can't be here tonight. She had a paid gig today. Again, can't begrudge anyone out there making money in this day and age right now. If you can work, you work. So we're sad you couldn't be here, Hope. We hope you get a chance to watch this episode. And again, just you can send me your feedbacks over DM on Discord if you want to. I'm looking forward to hearing how you felt about Zweihander. And my game in particular. Again, I want to thank my cast for taking the time to be a part of this game. It was super fun. You guys are a tough act for this next group to follow, both in RP and in Chaos. But we'll see how well this next group is able to follow suit with Vigilantes. It's going to be a little different style of game. I've got some new boards and stuff that I'm creating to help manage the chaos as it happens, and I look forward to bringing this this campaign world kind of to an end. Not like a destructive necessarily end, but like a story-wise end.
Oh, come on, Dustin. You know it's going to be destructive.
Hey,
Blow it up.
whether it blows up is completely up to them. You know that.
I'm just excited for the last episode when it's the Triwizard Cup and you bring all 3 parties
Oh,
back.
God, if I have to do that. Like, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I got enough screen room for that many more faces on screen at one time. Like, I don't know how I managed to get you guys in the TREEFELL cast both up there at the same time still and still have the map shown. Like, I'm getting better at my overlay work, I guess. But so without any further ado, again, thank you everybody for being in the chat today. Thank you again, players. All the episodes of Terran TREEFELL, Horror Huttenberg are up on YouTube thanks to Jeff's hard work. So thank you, Jeff, for getting all that up there on our YouTube channel. And we will catch you guys next time. We're going to the outro. And peace.